And welcome to the Midwest Dynasty Fantasy Football Podcast. Tom Brumbaugh, Cody Halla, and finally, we get to look at the eye-gazing love to the right of me, Sam Betland. Sam, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me in the podcast room.
Yeah, we're live from the podcast room for the first time. This is, we bought out, it's only like $100 a month to get this rented out for Melissa and Sam. So...
Wait, they're only charging you $100?
Yeah.
I'm being charged like $200.
Yeah, you weren't supposed to tell him that.
You rat bastards. So we got a pretty exciting show for this week, just talking about week 2 to all the listeners out there for you guys. But first, we're starting a new thing called the Trivia Show on the Midwest Dynasty Fantasy Football Podcast. And we're going to all ask each other one question and tabulate week to week what the results are so that we can kind of figure out who's the smartest fantasy footballer of the three of us, me, Cody, and Sam. So first, Cody, give us your trivia question.
Well, first off, I want to thank us for actually being able to do something like this so that I'm actually able to prove that I'm the smartest fantasy football player. I've been looking for a lot of evidence for a long time.
Yep.
And, last year I got my trophy. And now this year I have trivia to win at. So it's just kind of nice to be able to have all these opportunities to just prove it to you guys. But I digress. Starting off with my first trivia question for you boys comes from Next Gen Stats for 2019. Which quarterback in the NFL has had the most time to throw?
In 2019?
In 2019, in these first 2 games.
So how are we going to do this? Do you get to guess first and then I'll get to guess after?
It's a good question. Do we both write down our answer and give it to Cody?
I like that idea. Or let's just type it down somewhere and then we'll be honest. How does that sound?
Sure.
Yeah.
Who in 2019 so far?
In 2019
Who
so
has
far,
the most time?
who's had the most time to throw, according to Next Gen Stats?
It's probably my boy Stafford because their line is so good.
Defensive line, maybe.
Wow, that's a good question. I got a guess.
I got mine too.
All right.
All right, who
Go
wants
ahead,
to lead
Sam.
it off?
I went with Tom Brady.
Nope.
Well, I also
This is going to come as a surprise. It is actually Kirk Cousins.
Oh,
He has had
wow.
3.27 seconds to throw. Next closest was Aaron Rodgers at 3.1.
Almost guessed him. Yeah, and it clearly shows with Kirk Cousins. He has too much time.
If it actually makes you feel any better, looking at this really quick, Tom Brady's not even in the top 10 or top 15. Oh my God, I don't know where Tom Brady is. Oh, he's like bottom, like number 25. But I think that might also be a little biased because, think about how fast Brady gets rid of the ball. Does he even take 2 seconds to throw a ball? He just catches and basically throws it.
Good point. Well, Tom, we had bad guesses, apparently.
Well, that's okay.
That's a win for your boy.
That is. Oh, is that how we're doing
No,
it?
no.
I'm just going to get the most obscure questions ever going forward. None of us get any right the entire season.
Oh, damn. There'll be some tough questions.
Who's the best football player in 1934?
In your opinion, who's the best fantasy football player of all time?
Yeah.
Oh,
wrong.
Your opinion is incorrect.
Chumbawamba. All right, Sam, drop it to us.
All right, mine's going to be a little more straightforward, I think. We're going to go with what player has been targeted most in a single game this season?
Interesting.
I think I actually might know.
So
this.
most targets in one game. Could be either week 1 or 2.
I think it was a week 1.
It was a maybe. Actually, I don't know for sure. I
This
just
is a
have a
really
guess.
good
I have a
question.
guess. It is a very good question.
What?
Very good question. Sorry, I was typing
Very good
something.
quiz.
I let very good quiz. Apparently, I'm like Jimmy from South Park. Very good quiz.
All right. I have my guess.
Okay, let's hear it.
I'm going to go with Christian Kirk, week 1.
You are incorrect.
I'm gonna go with John Ross, week 1.
You are also incorrect. To everyone's surprise, it is Jamison Crowder.
Oh, what?
Week
But that
one-
was week 1,
Week
right?
1, he had 17 targets.
That's right.
Because Ross had
Shoot.
15, and so I thought it was for sure Ross.
And Crowder only ended with 24 fantasy points, too.
I don't know where Ross
Only.
is, but yeah, I don't think he was very. I think he had 90 something yards. It wasn't very good, I didn't think.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That's a good question. 2 good, solid questions from today's NFL. I'm going to bring the retro train back.
if we can't get today's, I'm interested to see this one.
Here we go. So we're all familiar with the standard fantasy football scoring, right? Based off of that, Which running back outscored every other running back in fantasy football points in every single season between 1992 and 1995? I'll repeat the question. Which running back outscored every other running back in fantasy points in every single season between 1992 and 1995?
I feel like my answer is going to be ridiculous because it's probably not even going to have played during that time.
That's kind of where I'm at too. It's like I have about 3 guesses right now, and I don't know.
All right, I'm going to give you multiple choice
Okay.
Okay.
because that's going to help narrow
I
it
bet
down.
they're going to be all 3 of my guesses, so it's not going to help.
Is it A, Marshall Falk, B, Barry Sanders, C, Emmitt Smith, or D, Thurman Thomas?
Outscored every other player.
Every single season, which running back outscored every other running back in fantasy points in every single season between 1992 and 1995?
Fantasy, not PPR.
Correct.
Okay, interesting.
PPR was not developed yet in the 90s, I don't think.
Did you just pick the top 3 from that list?
I don't know.
Okay. Cody, I think you're first in this one.
Well, first off, I don't think it was Marshall Falk. I remember him being good a little bit later in the late 90s. So I don't believe it's him. The second person that you said was Barry Sanders. Oh, and that's pretty reasonable.
The third was Emmitt Smith, and then the fourth was
I know.
Thurman Thomas. Okay.
I'm just taking through my
Sorry,
guesses.
who was the fourth?
Thurman Thomas.
I'm actually going to go
Bonus
out here.
points if you can name who Thurman Thomas played for in the 90s.
Yeah, I'm actually just going to say Thurman Thomas just because it seems so obscure in that year. And I always just for some reason associate Barry Sanders and all those other guys in the late 90s, but it might have been those guys as well. But I'm going to go Thurman Thomas.
All right. Sam, what's your guess?
My reasoning could be wrong, but I feel like obviously Emmitt Smith had such a great career, but I feel like it wasn't because a single few years. It was just that he played so long. So I'm going to go Marshall Falk.
Interesting. So we have Marshall Falk and Thurman Thomas.
Yep.
The answer was Emmitt Smith.
Oh, my God.
Thought about it.
Well, great job, guys. We're all tied at 0.
And I even gave you guys a 1 and 4, and neither of
did.
you got it.
Yeah.
So next week we go with who was the best player last year?
Seriously. What is Mahomes' first name?
yeah.
Is it Rick? Shit.
Marcus?
Next week we play what are our qualifications to be doing this podcast?
Yeah.
All right, so let's break down
We're in
some
the league.
matchups in week 2. And we're going to start with the week 2 matchup of the week, which featured Matt Magnuson and Matt Trujillo, the Matt Square Off, some could say. And let's lead off with just a major news note. And I think this is a good way to start the show because it really will give us a good insight into Matt Trujillo's new team name, and that's Ben Roethlisberger. 3 points, and now I don't know. Sam, start us off and talk about what do you think the Pittsburgh situation looks like now?
I honestly think that's a pretty big hit. I mean, first it was Le'Veon Bell gone, then it was Antonio Brown, and now it's Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, how many more Hall of Fame players can they take before it starts to decrease their offensive production? And I honestly think this is probably enough. I think Juju will still be fine. He takes a little bit of a hit. I actually think Connor takes a bigger hit just because I don't think they're going to score as many touchdowns, which he's gotten a lot of value from.
But I think a lot of people say James Washington is a big up now because Mason Rudolph, if you've listened to anyone talk about anything fantasy football, he played college with Washington and basically made Washington who he was. And so it'll be interesting to see. I think Washington's stock is up. Smith-Schuster's is down. Yeah, but as far as Trujillo's team, he's now got to start Jimmy Garoppolo. Cody, is that a good quarterback?
Yeah, I think it's fine, honestly, for losing 2 quarterbacks already where he's at. I think Garoppolo showed, especially last week, that he's kind of on the, a little bit of the up and up a little bit. Before we kind of really cover that side of his team, though, I want to go back to the Pittsburgh situation here and what Sam was saying with James Conner. I mean, James Conner this next upcoming week is actually probable for the game. He didn't practice today. So there's a chance, I mean, that like Jalen Samuels, especially if he doesn't play, could get the carries and that his value could still take a hit with Ben Roethlisberger being out. And I think some people were thinking Benny Snell's might, step up and take over that role as well. But I don't know. You guys still convinced on Jalen Samuels?
I think I like Jalen Samuels more than Benny Snell. I don't think Snell is actually that good.
I do too, but I do believe Snell got a few carries last week.
He did.
So
Yeah.
never know. Maybe they'll go by committee. I mean, has Jalen Samuels ever really run the offense? I know Connor was out a couple of weeks last year, but
No, but I think he got like 25 carries in one of the games last year.
sure.
I don't remember for sure, but
It'd be interesting to see too is the fact that like James Conner's only played around 50% of the snaps, and that's just when he's been healthy, and then the rest has gone to Samuel and a little bit to Snell. Is if he's gone, I'm assuming Jalen Samuels takes over that 50% timeshare, and then who knows, maybe the other 50% goes to, Benny Snell, or maybe they give Jalen Samuel a little bit more than 50%. Just something to consider.
Austin Eckler had another huge game for Trujillo. He already told us what his name. Trujillo. It's Spanish, I'm guessing. Austin Eckler had 22 fantasy points, and he even fumbled the ball. I mean, as a Lions fan, that was amazing when he fumbled, because that was fantastic. But 22 points from Eckler. He's now the number 1 fantasy running back, if I remember correctly, in PPR especially, even more. Where does he finish at the end of the season?
When does Melvin Gordon come back?
Yeah, that's a huge part of it.
I mean, right now it seems like Austin Eckler is basically Christian McCaffrey light.
Yep.
I mean, looking at the stat line, 17 carries for 66 yards. That's fine, but it's not great. And then, I mean, he has 6 receptions for 67. So that and the touchdowns is clearly where he gets most of his points.
Mm-hmm. And he could have had even more, because there was one drive for the Chargers that Austin Eckler got like a 65-yard, or no, it's not, it was like 45-yard touchdown called back from a penalty. Then like 2 plays later, Justin Jackson had a 45-yard touchdown call back from penalty.
Jeez.
So, yeah, I mean, Eckler could have had more. They love him in the offense. He's clearly, I said last week 60-40, but I actually seems more like the Chargers like him like 70-30 over Jackson. But you've mentioned this too before, Cody. Jackson is like a really talented running back. And if Eckler ever has time out, Jackson is like, woo, he's top 10 running back, arguably.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's definitely up there. I mean, Eckler, as far as just a straight up ball carrier, is decent. He's definitely, like Sam was saying, is a better pass catcher, I think, and that's kind of what gives him utility on this offense. But Justin Jackson has shown the propensity to actually be a very good running back. Mm-hmm. And I mean, his yards per carry has been pretty much over like 4.5 each game, and he's consistently just been he's looked really good too. I mean, he's fast, he's elusive. I like him a lot personally, and he's also a little bit of a bigger back than Austin Eckler. Not by a lot, but I mean, he's got a little bit of inches to his height, and then I think he weighs about 10 pounds more. So it's like,
that helps
for goal line carries. I think that would help for sure.
Yeah, maybe he won't fumble the ball at the goal line like Eckler did. Yeah, I think they're a great duo, and honestly, if I'm the Chargers front office, I'm not even thinking about signing Melvin Gordon.
Yeah. I agree.
Devin Singletary looks to be out for Matt's team, which we were just talking about last week, how that was kind of a solution to RB2. Slot him RB2, now he's out. I mean, so now who's he slotting at second running back? I mean, is it back to McCoy, who had a really down week, and he might be out too? I mean, is he picking someone up legitimately to start this week?
No, you'd go with Penny.
Yeah, I mean, Penny's like worst case scenario. I think McCoy is still a solid option. I mean, he's on the Kansas City offense. If he gets 50% of the touches, let's say he ends with 12 carries and 3 receptions, it's not going to be a great stat line, but if that's the worst case scenario, it's not that bad.
Yeah, and Damian Williams is definitely on his way out as a running back, in my opinion. He has looked awful, like, on that offense, and that is one of the easiest offenses as a running back to be successful on. So even the fact that his like yards per carry has been like less than 3 has been atrocious. So I foresee LaShawn McCoy becoming a bigger asset. The only question with him is durability. He's an older running back, and so this is kind of where, to me, at least, I get a little optimistic, is with Darwin Thompson and people talking about his explosiveness within this offense. Is, you have Damian Williams, who regresses and has shown regression. You have LaShawn McCoy, who, in my opinion, will be really good for about 10 weeks here. And then you never know if he could slow down a little bit just because of those questions. And that's when Darwin Thompson goes in. But for the meantime, I agree with you. I think LaShawn McCoy or Rashad Penny is the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubting that LaShawn McCoy is not a future solution. But, I mean, if Singletary's out a couple of weeks, Singletary looks like he's got the backfield.
Yeah, he does. He looked really good, and you were right on in the preseason because you really liked Singletary before you traded him. They really liked him too in the first 2 games. It's just a little unfortunate that the injury bug's hitting. But don't sleep on Damian Williams either yet, I don't think. I think he still has a huge opportunity in the backfield with receiving. They really like him. He's by far the biggest target share in the for the running back position on the Chiefs, which we all know is like really good. So
yeah, he is. I think it's nice that he has Andy Reid's favor.
Yeah.
But I don't know. To me, there's just always like a little itch that isn't there kind of a reason that no one knew who he was before he was 27 years old?
Yep.
Which is basically the end of a running back's career anyway. But as long as Andy Reid likes him, he's going to be valuable.
But he likes McCoy more, to your point.
Yeah.
He loves
It
McCoy.
seems like it's at least a split right now.
I mean,
so.
Yep.
yeah, I mean, looking at snap percentages even for Damian Williams, he went up from 66% down to 50% last week.
Yep.
So that's a trend I could see continuing.
That is a really good point. Absolutely. So Deshaun Watson on Matt's team, 10 points. Nothing to see here. Derrick Henry, 16. Oh, there is a little bit to say here. That's kind of low, but I'm not worried.
It's Jacksonville. I mean,
Yeah.
DeAndre Hopkins was completely taken out of the game by Jalen Ramsey. So it's
Yeah, none of us are worried, right?
Yeah,
I
not at
think
all.
that's fine. Derrick Henry, solid 16 points, but Michael Thomas, 18 points, 19 points now, and it's kind of the same thing we are just talking about in Pittsburgh because now Breeze, their veteran quarterback, is out. Does Thomas take a bigger hit than Juju Smith-Schuster? That's the question I'm asking.
No, not to me. I don't
Okay.
think so. I think there's enough playmakers around Michael Thomas that you solely can't focus on him. Like, especially Alvin Kamara is still there. I forget, I'm blanking on who they're tight end. Jared Cook is still there, and he's
Been asked, though.
He's been asked, but I mean, if you watch him play, he's still just as athletic as kind of like
athletic, but he dropped like 3 passes last game.
Yeah. I still think he demands. I don't know. He's done it enough so many years that I think I'm not willing to give up on him so fast
me
yet.
I get you.
But I just think, I mean, if I'm a defense, I'm targeting Kamara first and often, which was apparent in this last game, even when Drew Brees went out, is because Kamara only ended with like 7 points.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think Michael Thomas will be fine. I definitely think it hurts him. It drops him at least a tier, if not half a tier to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I completely agree. And kind of what you were saying with Juju, where he brings him from top 5 to maybe like lower wide receiver 1.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's kind of the same with Michael Thomas, maybe a little bit less, where it drops him from. I mean, you could make an argument that he was the number 1 dynasty asset, not even just receiver or anything. But without Breeze, does it drop him? I mean, probably what, in between 5 and 10 as a wide receiver alone. So still solid play. You'll never not play him, but it does hurt.
Yeah, he's only 26 still. So,
Yeah.
But it does beg the question. I mean, a lot of people think that Ben Roethlisberger and Drew Brees might be done. I mean, I don't think both of them will be, but I think one of those has a high chance. All right, should we do a dollar bet?
On which one we think will retire first?
Yeah, I kind of want to do that. I'm going to say Drew Brees is done. Does anyone disagree with that?
I'll bet you Big Ben is done.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, so we have a dollar bet.
Sooner than Drew Brees.
Sooner than okay, so that's our dollar bet.
Okay.
All right,
Yep.
write it down.
I'll lock it
I'm
in.
taking Drew Brees is done first. I actually think it's reasonable that Roethlisberger gets the surgery and comes back for a year and then maybe retires after. Even though he's out for the longer this season, I could see Drew Brees playing out this season because of thumb injury and then, whatever they do in the playoffs and then being done.
Yeah, I totally understand your side of the bet. I think it'll just be interesting to see how Big Ben, especially, I think a lot of it's depending on Rudolph, and if he's successful there, then Big Ben just, do you even bring him back? He looked awful this season already, and that was healthy. Like,
man, now you made me think of something else. I mean, do you like Mason Rudolph or Teddy Bridgewater better for Dynasty as a quarterback?
too early to tell. I mean, if I was just going off of this last week, Rudolph, but that's not really a good indicator.
Rudolph had a hell of a week, but honestly, to me, it's about Michael Thomas being locked up for 5 years.
Yeah.
I would take Teddy Bridgewater
Yeah.
solely because of that.
And Sean Payton, you
Yeah,
could argue,
they've
with
had a
his
good offense forever. So
Whereas Tomlin obviously has fostered great offenses, but I think he's more of a defensive-minded coach. He always has been. So, God, a lot of good questions just from that whole situation with those two teams.
a couple of really big injuries.
Absolutely, yeah. So moving on to Keenan Allen, 18 points. Again, nothing else to see there.
15 targets is big.
I
15
know.
That's a lot
targets
of
is
targets.
huge. But I think that, and that isn't necessarily expected, but with Hunter Henry out, I think that is part of the reason why. And also, I, as a Lions fan, the resident one, I watched that game. He was beating up Slay a lot, which was sad for me. Darius Slay, the cornerback. So obviously, Slay got revenge and picked off in the end zone a throw to Keenan Allen to win the game. So that made me happy. But I don't think there's much to talk about with Keenan Allen. Stephon Diggs, 11 points.
7 targets, 1 reception.
Yeah, how did that? Is that Cousins or is that Diggs? You guys watch the game?
A little bit of A, a little bit of B.
I mean, yes. Yeah, it's
I mean, from what I can remember the most is that there were a couple just Cousins just throwing the ball away or throwing that costly interception at the last second, which were some of those targets. But there was one back shoulder I saw Diggs drop that wasn't very Diggs-like. He normally is very good at, if the ball's on his chest at all, he catches it. But Cousins threw a perfect back shoulder pass to him, and he dropped it. And I mean, he dealt with the injury a little bit last week. It might have been lingering over a little bit. I'm not exactly sure. But then again, it'll be interesting to see the value of Diggs and Thielen as we go forward, especially with how much the Vikings are running the football. Like, this isn't last year. Like, they're not throwing it like 60% of the time. It just feels like everything's a run, and it's working for them. So until that doesn't work for them, I don't know. I don't know how to evaluate Diggs and Thielen.
I completely agree. I mean, when you're talking about throwing the ball 80% of the time or whatever it was, it's easy to have two low wide receiver ones, high wide receiver twos, but when the quarterback throws the ball, let's say 10 times in a game, it's impossible to get anything from that. And I don't know. I kind of view Diggs going forward as a big hit or a big miss, right? I mean, his touchdown here was 49 yards, and that's all he had. And I could be misremembering, but I thought he had one of those the first game too, or something similar. Or
he got missed on a long pass,
Okay.
I think. But I know Thielen caught a touchdown last week.
just seems like they're looking at him really deep, and could be high risk, high reward.
Yeah, I have nothing to add there, but what I do want to talk about is Greg Olsen, 20 points. And with a struggling Cam Newton, you got to imagine it's almost like the same thing you always say about why do rookies always throw to tight ends? Well, it's because tight ends are often in the part of the field that's easiest to throw to, and they're easy receptions. But also with Cam Newton, he's in the sense that he's not, obviously he's a veteran quarterback, but his shoulder is making him look like a young quarterback that can't throw very far. And so I think Greg Olsen is a super sweet acquisition for Matt over the offseason. I don't know. Do you guys think that's real? Is that something to buy into, Greg Olsen?
I don't know. I mean, he's got a high floor, so I honestly think 20 points is probably his ceiling.
Oh, yeah.
How many
No, I agree.
how many touchdowns does he get this year? 3 maybe. You know what I mean? Like, sure, if he can put up 9 targets and get 110 yards, that's a great game. Because I think he will get targeted more than he would if Cam Newton was a good quarterback now.
Yeah.
But like, their offense can't produce anything. I could see him getting 3 points just as much as I could see him getting 20.
I just like the 9 targets, I guess is where I'm coming
That is
from.
big, yeah.
I don't think that's going to stay, though, in my opinion. I mean, this is a game where basically McCaffrey wasn't targeted at all.
Yeah.
And McCaffrey
Well, there's
wasn't.
reason for that because he's turning to dust.
Yeah, something like that. It was sloppy field conditions. It was way more of a conducive game for just kind of basically throwing it 10 yards down the middle of the field. And from watching the game a lot, he really was just like never covered. So I found that to be kind of interesting. So I think going forward, I think the old Greg Olsen reverts back to his normal self.
Agreed.
I see your guys' points on both sides. T.Y. Hilton, 15 points with Jacoby Brissett. Only 4 receptions, but nothing really to talk about there.
Sorry, can we talk about David Johnson quick?
Absolutely.
I don't think we've touched on him.
No.
Obviously, the Cardinals have a huge change in offense, right? It's been, I mean, Kyler's just completely changed it. That whole air raid and what's his name? Kingsbury.
Kingsbury.
Yeah, I am actually kind of worried about David Johnson. I mean, with Kyler throwing the ball 50 times a game, I don't know. I think he'll get more than 7 carries like he did this game. But what, 12 maybe? Maybe he'll get a few more receptions, but I don't think he's the top tier that we thought he would be coming into the season.
Nor do I think he's a top-tier talent in running back. That was something we talked about last week. Who are your top guys talent-wise? And neither of us really thought Johnson is in there. We didn't know. We were kind of on the fence with him. But I definitely have never thought that he is. And so he was always just a high-volume guy.
I thought he might have been originally when I saw him that first year. Like, he actually seemed talented. He could break tackles. Then he had the injury.
The injury might
And then
be-
now he's just never really seen the same as the injury. And I completely agree with Sam on this one. I just think it's just going to go away from him. Plus, that offensive line is atrocious. It's so bad. Like, watching the highlights here, even it's unbelievable Kyler Murray was able to do what he did last week because he constantly had guys on him in like a second. And it's just like, it was outrageous how much he just had to float the ball up. And then, you know, even them trying to hand off, they already have a guy in the background tackling him. So I think Kingsbury knows he has to adjust from that. And that's just going to be the game script now.
Yeah. On Trujillo's team, Julio Jones, to continue on the line here, 32 points. The guy's insane. He's not showing any signs of aging, and Matt Ryan is still great. That connection has not changed one bit. The only thing that I think might have changed is that it looks like Calvin Ridley's going to get more targets. But yeah, Jones is great. Moving on, Mari Cooper, Only 5 targets. Got the touchdown this week. Yeah. Dak Prescott looks amazing. We talked about this last week. He looked really good again. He's earning that freaking contract. We're going to skip over to T.Y. Hilton, and then as the resident Lions fan, once again, T.J. Hawkinson with only 1.7 points. I'm not worried. I actually think that his average should be between what happened in week 1 and what happened in week 2.
Okay. Dollar bet.
Oh!
800 yards above or below. Because I take below.
Ooh, interesting. So I think he already has, so he has 7 now. He probably already has about 135.
Give or take.
So he's on pace for like 1,000.
Yeah.
But
he's currently at 138.
Oh, I'm pretty close. Yeah, so about pace for about a little bit over 1,000. I'm going to take the over because I'm a Lions fan. Okay. That might be a free dollar, but I think that's 800 is a good number.
I'll lock it in. I believe that would be the tight end rookie record.
Would it really?
Yeah, I think the record's 750 something or something like that. Yeah.
I mean, do you think that he could be the guy to do that, though?
I think he could.
Yeah.
But I'm just always going to bet against history.
Yeah, for sure. I get it. I like the logic, and I like the bet. Speaking of Calvin Ridley, it's kind of funny that he has Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, and he started both.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that. Yeah. Rip me. Yeah, any more notes about that match that you guys can think of? Trujillo pulling it out 156 to 153. Narrow victory.
That's super clutch with the Ben Roethlisberger injury.
Yeah.
Like, not many people can have their quarterback get injured and then still win.
Triggered.
So I think that's actually a perfect segue to talking about the winner of this week, what I like to affectionately call this week's Toilet Bowl, the opposite of the matchup of the week. Cody Halla and Marcus Skonieski squared off, and Cody won 115 to 105 with no help from the negative 0.48 points of Drew Brees. We've already kind of talked about that ad nauseum. Drew Brees, if you don't know, is supposed to be out 6 to 8 weeks. Some people think he might go on the IR. Still kind of undecided. Kind of depends on how the thumb surgery goes. But on the other side of the matchup, Carson Wentz, 43 pass attempts, only 200 yards. I don't know. From watching the game, I personally didn't think he looked all that great, really. I don't know if you guys have an opinion on him.
I have nothing to back this up, but it felt like he was getting pressured quite a bit. It seemed like at least, 6 or 7 of his throws were literally while he was falling down. And he was injured. I know he was out for a drive or 2, I believe. I don't remember exactly how many plays.
And he still got 43 passes.
Yeah, I completely agree that that's not the stat line you want to come out with. About a 50% completion rating and 230 yards and a touchdown. I'm still not worried. I think he's a clear QB1. I think he'll end as a QB1. I would start him unless you have someone very, very top tier.
Yeah, it was a rib injury that he sustained, so that definitely affects your throwing motion. And then it was quite clear that, as the game progressed, he was he must have been getting a little bit better, or he just felt looked better. Because his fourth quarter stats were way better than the first 3, and he looked a ton different. So I think the injury just played a part, discomfort played a part. Not worried.
Yeah, and he also has Phillip Rivers to back him up because Skonieski does. That is. On both sides. This is something that happened last week, too, in the running back one. I don't remember the matchup. I think it was Matt's team versus someone else. Both RB1s just had down weeks. We have that again. Christian McCaffrey on Cody's side and Alvin Kamara on Marcus. Some people think they're 1-2, running backs 1 and 2, and they both had 7 points. Yeah. And so, all right, here's a good question. Who are you most worried about between those two? If there's any worry.
Neither at all.
Really?
Not at all, honestly. Are you worried about either? You have Christian McCaffrey.
No, I'm not worried about either. McCaffrey was just bad field conditions, bad game script a little bit right there. The Kamara one, I didn't watch that game, so I'm not as knowing about why that just occurred. Maybe that's a result of Drew Brees' injury, but that seems highly unlikely. It seems like a fluke. He's way too talented not to be good.
I agree.
I agree, but I think that Drew Brees brings a lot to that offense for Kamara. I think that's part of the reason he gets so many dump-off passes. And I actually would be worried about Kamara for this year, if I'm being honest.
I'm not exactly sure if I would be worried about him. The only reason why I'm saying this now is because this is Teddy Bridgewater coming into a game, and then Kamara not doing well for having not practiced with Bridgewater, not done anything with him. Now he's coming into it a full week. Being with Bridgewater, understanding how Bridgewater works. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of growth that can come even just from that. And as the season progresses, I expect that to go, get better. I still think Kamara's going to be a top 5 running back. Dollar bet. Damn it.
For the rest of the season, top 5 running back.
Sure.
That's the line. It's interesting enough that I'll take it.
Nice. Mark it down. We're going for broke, boys.
He could be 6. basically.
Sure.
And that would be victory. I'm legitimately a little bit worried about it because I think that it's possible that the game script changes for that Saints team for the next 6 to 8 weeks with Kamara. I'm not saying that Kamara isn't one of the most talented running backs in the league. I'm just saying that there are a lot of really good running backs too.
No, I do actually agree with you. I think it impacts him. Not enough that I'd be worried, and I guess I don't think he'll end top 5, or at least there's a good chance that he won't. But, I mean, if you've watched the games, I mean, Kamara is an absolute freak. Like, I don't know if there's anyone better in the league at breaking tackles and making their own room and just hitting that small hole. I think he's a top probably 3 talent in the league as far as running back goes, that he'll still be fine.
So on Skonieski's side, we have Josh Jacobs with 12 carries and 99 yards. Last week, he got a ton of carries. I can't remember the exact number. It was like 22 or something. And now it looked like they give Jalen Richard more carries. And he's like 5'8", this little dude. And they gave him like, oh, never mind. They only gave him 2 carries. I don't know what I'm talking about. But why'd they only rush Josh Jacobs 12 times?
Game script.
Yep.
They were playing against Kansas City.
No, I suppose they were down most of the game.
Andy has a little bit of a groin injury too.
That's fair.
So he's limited. I know at practice this week. So
That's
efficient as hell, though.
Oh,
12
for
carries
sure.
for 99 yards. That's still a great game.
8.2 yards per carry.
Yeah.
Not too shabby.
So we like Josh Jacobs, right? I mean,
Love him.
Yeah.
top rookie running back for sure.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, his first game, they were talking about it on the NFL channel or whatever, and they were saying that no one has rushed for 100 yards and scored 2 touchdowns in their first game since LaDainian Tomlinson.
Oh, wow.
Obviously, no one's saying he's LT, but I mean, what does he have? 240 yards through his first 2 games? He's been phenomenal.
So you heard it here. Sam thinks that Josh Tomlinson is his real name.
Yeah, pretty much. They call him JT.
Yeah, for the season running, he's about at 170 right now for rushing yards.
Didn't he have over 100 the first game?
If you count his one reception, he did.
Okay, that must have been
Because he had,
totally.
he had a
100
reception for
yards.
28 yards. But that's kind of something I want to get into with him because I don't know if you guys saw that reception that he had because he had 0 receptions in the second game, but he had that one in the first game and he looked awesome when he caught that ball. I mean, it was just like a normal little like HB I don't know, just hook route essentially, and he just caught the ball and just looked great. And I hope Oakland gets him more involved in the passing game because I think that's where his talent can even become higher. And then I don't know, we'll see if they do that or not. Do you guys think that's something they'll start involving him with more as the season progresses?
I mean, maybe. The Raiders' all-time passing leader, Cody. He clearly likes to air it out, right?
You don't know that by mistake.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
No, but I do think they do. I mean, what is he known for? Dumping it off to the tight end, basically. I would assume if they have an elite running back, it'll be pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
So I would hope at least.
Right.
Yeah, Mark Ingram with 9.7 points looks about the same as last week. He had actually a higher snap percentage this week, so that's something to look into for Ingram. But lower efficiency, but I don't know. I think Ingram's still a big part of the offense, a little bit more than maybe people thought going into the year. So I'm a fan of Ingram.
Yeah. Fine RB2, I'd say.
Snap percentage also went way up this last week.
That's
Went
what I said, yep.
Yep. 32 to 58. I was just going to bring up the numbers.
Oh, okay, got it. Yep.
Also, he was used in the passing game, which is something that he wasn't initially used in week 1.
2 targets.
Yeah, but I think that's going to continue to be a trend.
Okay.
I think a lot of people feel that way too. I mean, that's how he was also kind of at times used on the Saints offense. I think that's an element of his game that can really be looked at.
But I don't think it's about Ingram. I just personally think that it just seems like Baltimore isn't interested in that style of play. They're more interested in the RPOs, not the RP passes or the pass option.
I think they've played 2 crappy defenses and haven't had to rely on RB passes, is my opinion.
Sure, I think that's reasonable. Yeah, okay. I don't want to start another dollar bet, so.
You're only at 3.
Shit.
How are we going to be able to afford rent?
Yeah, seriously. Good thing it's $1, not $1,000. OBJ won you the week on Monday night, 32 points. Finally had the breakout game because week 1 wasn't too great for him, but Baker looked a little better in my opinion from watching part of the game. I mean, still not, and he still kind of looks like he's on the sophomore slump. But yeah, good to see that OBJ is getting the targets, and man, the one-handed catch he made on the sideline.
Oh, that was so disgusting.
Yeah.
That was so disgusting.
But then some downsides in Robert Woods for Skonieski. I mean, I don't care about the 1 carry. That's whatever. That's negligible. But it's the 2 targets. And he caught both. But for 33 yards in a win, they scored 27 points, and he wasn't part of the offense. I mean, Cooks caught a touchdown, if I remember correctly. Kupp is doing great as their slot guy for Goff because Goff loves him. What do you think about Robert Woods?
Possibly Marshawn Lattimore. The Saints, like, basically Pro Bowl cornerback, I think just kind of shut him down. And, Robert Woods is the main guy there. So that matchup was kind of persistent. And, once they kind of got up by a little bit, and I think Drew Brees, once he was out of the game, I think the script just kind of changed to also running the ball a lot more and not passing it. So it was you either had to be involved early or else you're not really going to get involved that game. I still think he's going to be fine going forward.
But it does beg the question, like, if the Rams aren't as high-powered as last year, which I think is a fair argument to make,
absolutely.
Can they spread the ball out to 3 receivers? Because a lot of people have Cooper Kupp, Woods, and Cooks all top 30 receivers. Sometimes, some people might say top 25 receivers. I mean, I don't think that's sustainable. Let me put it this way. I don't think that's what is going to happen. I don't think all 3 are going to finish top 30.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I guess now thinking about it with Cooks, I mean, Marshawn Lattimore might have been on Cooks some of the game too.
I think he's regarded their number 1, yeah.
So I guess that's... I didn't see how the matchup went, so I'm not exactly sure, but...
Me either, entirely.
Yeah, so I guess it'd be interesting to go back and look at that and see if we could evaluate where more of that was coming from, but off the top of my head, I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah. I mean, overall, it's not good to see that he has 2 targets. Looked at, and he has, like, the first game he had 13 targets.
Right.
So, I mean, you average that out, he's still fine. I mean, probably middle of the pack, 7 to 8 a game.
Yep.
I don't know. It's certainly not good to see, but you got to expect that from the offense. Like you said, there's going to be regression. There's going to be some highs and there's going to be some lows. So not every week is going to be great from them.
Mm-hmm. Tyler Lockett had a bounce back week this week for Skonieski here. Not that he didn't had a bad week just because he scored the touchdown last week, but he went from 2 targets to 12 targets now. Caught 10 of them. And I don't know, with Metcalf performing as well, it almost makes you wonder if it's helping Lockett because Lockett's more the fly guy, whereas Metcalf's the Calvin Johnson of that offense. I don't know. I like Lockett.
I like him too. I mean, I think he gains most of his value just from receptions. You're looking 10 receptions for 79 yards is not that great of a stat line. And I do think DK taking the top off of a defense does help the other side. Mm-hmm. I'm not super confident with that entire offense as far as throwing the ball goes. I'm not a huge fan of Russell Wilson. But, God, yeah, as your, what is he, wide receiver 2? Yeah, I think that's a completely fine play.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add on that. I think that kind of covers my end.
Yeah, the Joanna man, Josh Gordon on your team, he only got 4 points, and that's against Miami. But to your point, the same point you made game script wise, for another receiver we talked about earlier, or maybe it was a running back, whatever. Regardless, they just fed AB the ball, and it seemed like their game plan was, welcome back to a team, Antonio. Let's just literally chuck at you all game. And I guess I wouldn't be too concerned about Josh Gordon because I'd like to think that he'd probably score more points if it wasn't Miami and they weren't blowing him out 43-0. But I don't know. What do you think about Josh Gordon, Coates?
Boomer bust going forward is kind of what I evaluate with him. I think he's either going to put up these types of games or he's going to put up a huge game, essentially, especially if AB is being covered. I mean, in comparison, AB got about 3 more targets than Josh Gordon this game, so it's not a huge difference. I mean, it's enough for of a difference, but I think the fact that he only got 2 catches for 19 yards on those 5 targets seems a little low to me. But he didn't get that many targets in week 1 either, which is what leads me to believe he's going to be boomer bust. I think he'll either catch, 1 long pass or 2 long passes here or there and go from there. But I hope he can be used more. But that's obviously because I'm biased and he's on my team.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I honestly don't feel like there's many other people to talk about for this matchup. So unless you guys think of anyone you can see.
I think Kittle's kind of a big one.
Okay, go for it.
I mean, are you concerned with him at all?
No.
Okay.
The reason why I'm not concerned is because in week 1 he easily could have had 2 touchdowns that got called back. And I mean, if he puts up 2 more touchdowns, then he's back at the normal wide receiver 3 or whatever he should be at. Because I mean, that's 2 more touchdowns in week 1 puts him at 26 points. Mm-hmm. Like, that's a ton. And then this week is just kind of the way it happens. So I'm not really too concerned going forward personally.
Okay.
Yeah.
You still think he's a top 3 tight end then?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. It went from 91% snap count to 67, but I think that's because of the game being a blowout. And that's pretty common to take out your good guys there. So
I maybe want to add something, and we could probably do a dollar bet on this, is I think John Brown will be a top 30 wide receiver this year. I think he literally is getting those targets as the number 1 wide receiver in Buffalo. I think he's going to continue to get them, and he's just going to be a PPR monster.
Okay.
I will not bet against that.
Yeah, me either. I don't disagree actually at all.
Going into the season, that was not what a lot of people were predicting.
No. But then again, you look at their whole wide receiver room, barring Zay Jones, who I think is terrible. The rest of their receivers look fine going to the season, and so yeah, I mean, basically it was who's Josh Allen going to favor, and Josh Allen's look better, and so John Brown is going to look a little better.
Okay.
We'll see if I don't know how long Josh Allen's supposed
Basically,
to be out.
I think out of the system, I think I ended up getting it kind of makes me reevaluate my trade with Laramie, and it's I was able to get Golden Tate, and John Brown was just an extra piece thrown in that I liked. And I know he's older, but I don't know. I'm happy with it.
Is he older? He's what, 26?
29.
29.
Oh, he is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I always get the fucking John Brown and John Ross mixed up. John Ross, excuse me. Sorry. Yeah.
He certainly fills a hole in your team.
Yeah.
So that's pretty big.
Cool. Let's talk.
He'll be your wide receiver 3 going forward, probably, won't he?
He could be wide receiver 3, and then I could go between Golden Tate when he comes back and Josh Gordon for my flex. Kind of helps add some depth to my team a little bit.
Let's talk about me.
Why?
Jeez, so self-centered.
Selfish.
Let's talk about me. Oh, wait. I want to talk about, before that, I do want to say that Cody, you won by 10 points, and you scored 150 points. You should feel bad.
Look at the standings.
Oh, man. I hate fantasy football sometimes.
Agreed.
Look at points for.
I scored 142 points this week. Eric Barber scored 196. So I lost by 50 points. Biggest blowout. I didn't get the title of worst manager coin to sleeper, which I still think. With 17 bench slots, I think the worst manager thing is really funny, because I actually think worst manager can sometimes be a compliment to a team, because it means that you're really deep and then you just had options that you couldn't start. Or you have big boom bust players, which also isn't bad. If you have someone booming, period, it's good. So,
but it kind of evaluates who you should have been starting, and if you're a good or bad manager.
But the best manager, 100%, would be just a team that has terrible players and only good starters, which to me isn't necessarily the good mark of an actually good manager.
Or it could be a team that has a lot of great players and just knows which ones to start every week.
Yeah. Honestly, I think it's probably the team that wins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on from you retards. Last week I didn't talk about Lamar Jackson very much, but this week I'm going to, and I talked about this with you guys before the show. I think Lamar Jackson is a top 3 quarterback. Dollar bet. You guys agree?
That he ends as a top 3 quarterback? Yeah, I'll bet that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Already? Sweet. All right, cool. So I'm just going to keep talking then. Lamar Jackson looks better. He throws better. He got the carries this game and got 33 points. Second to Pat Mahomes this week. He looks more decisive. His feet are way calmer. And his throws are just dimes. Yes, terrible defenses, but I love the man. I love the man so much. I don't know. We already made a dollar bet on him, so I obviously don't think he's going to do this well, because they're pretty trash defenses. But, I mean, who's to say he can't get even better from where he is now? So I'm happy with him. It's way better than my situation going into the season that I thought, with just Goff and Jackson. And now it's just clearly I'm starting Jackson every week, I think.
Yeah, I mean, at the very worst, he's going to be a low top 10 quarterback right now from what it's looking like, which is, on your team, is very, very good.
Mm-hmm. Right. I'd even go as far as saying at very least he's going to be a top 5 quarterback, honestly. But yeah.
I said at the very worst.
Oh,
he'll be a top 10 quarterback.
Got it.
So I was saying, even for what his floor is looking like right now, I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, and that's what he was last year. His floor was top 10 quarterback, basically, so...
Yeah, well, I don't know if I agree with that exactly.
Oh, I actually think that's how he finished the season.
As a top 10 quarterback?
No, when he started, he was a top 10 quarterback, I think. You'd be surprised, but it's just his rushing. I mean, he had 600 rushing yards. I think. All right, something to look up.
Yeah, we'd have to look into that more and then get back on that. I'm not exactly sold on that.
Okay. For Eric Barber's quarterback, Tom Brady, 25 points. He's the ageless wonder, but they were playing the Dolphins, so... nothing to see here.
I'd like to point out that he had a rushing touchdown. so really, it's probably 18 points.
It's actually a fair point.
You'll never imagine how many yards he got for that touchdown.
Yeah, right. One. Yeah. I actually do think it's funny you bring that up, and I'm glad you did, because Tom Brady is actually a pretty historically meh fantasy quarterback for the last 5 years, because that's just not what they're about. They're not the high flying offense typically, but with how they've looked so far, and with Cody and I have talked about this, I think that the Patriots might have one of the best receiving cores ever with Antonio Brown when N'Keal Harry is healthy. Antonio Brown,
they had N'Keal Harry.
yeah, Josh Gordon,
And Julian.
and
Edelman.
then Julian Edelman. Is that the best receiving core ever?
Who was their fourth? Josh Gordon? N'Keal Harry? I mean,
probably
N'Keal Harry
seriously.
would have to
Probably
be
Harry.
A first round pick is their fourth
first-round
receiver.
pick.
That's insane.
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
is that the best receiving core ever?
It sure might be. Yeah, that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I think the only one that I was saying still to me might hold true was still the year that they had Randy Moss, and then I'd have to look at who the other wide receivers were in that. But I think it
Deion
was
Branch?
And
But I mean, I think they still had Wes Welker, and they probably still had Rob Gronkowski because I don't think this was that long ago.
I don't know
think
about
that
that.
I think that was before Gronk.
Yeah, I think it
thought
was.
I
What year
remember
was it?
looking.
2008 was that the year that the Patriots?
Sounds right.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I thought I remember looking it was a year before Gronk, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a look at it. You guys continue talking.
That would make sense because then he was drafted in 2009, then he had a 9-year career, which I think sounds right. He retired
Yeah.
at 29, so
Yeah, but I mean, either way, do you view Tom Brady as like a top fantasy quarterback going forward?
No.
Even with their receiving core.
no, he's honestly probably even outside of the top 10.
I completely agree.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean he's not a great quarterback,
Yeah,
obviously.
he's serviceable, and I think he has one of the highest floors in
Yeah.
the league. I mean, he'll always put up points, but I just think they run the ball and they have their good defense, and he's not going to be high flying like some of these other quarterbacks.
Absolutely agree. Yeah, so I want to talk about Ezekiel Elliott because he was totally worth his contract, and they gave him all the carries. He was super efficient with the carries, almost 5. I think it was 5 yards per carry. Yeah, no, a little bit under 5 yards per carry, but still got the touchdown. A minor part of the receiving game, but I'm super happy with Elliott. I think he's a top 3 guy rest of the way. I'm not going to make a dollar bet on it just because of the variance of running backs.
I wouldn't bet against that. I mean, like, pick a more standard day for Ezekiel Elliott.
Yeah, right.
23 carries, 111 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 receptions.
Yep.
I mean, that's what I would stat him out at every single game.
Honestly, even a little low on the receptions for what he got last year.
A
So
little bit, yeah.
I'm happy.
Oh, sorry. Just wanted to bring up really quick. Looked at the Patriots. I'm gonna actually redact that statement. I'm gonna actually replace that with the Minnesota Vikings when they had
That's what I was
Chris
thinking,
Carter
yeah,
and
and
Randy
Randy
Moss
Moss.
on the same wide
But it was
receivers.
2 guys.
So that's 2 Hall of Famers.
Antonio Brown's a Hall of Famer.
And
Edelman might be.
Josh Gordon could have been a Hall of Famer if he actually had a reasonable career.
maybe, but I mean, like,
seriously,
But
I
I mean,
mean-
Randy Moss to me, okay, yes, Antonio Brown is a Hall of Famer, but Randy Moss is debatably the best wide receiver of all time.
I think AB is probably better than Carter.
I'm willing to, yes,
Yeah, I mean,
I'm willing to
he is,
agree
but
with
he's
that.
also the first receiver compared to the second.
Yep, agreed. I'm just saying, a lot of people thought Josh Gordon was
Yeah.
heading for the Hall
And I
of
think
Fame.
that's not even counting. I don't know if Anthony Carter was still on the team too for the Vikings or who their third wide receiver was. If
Well, I
it was
don't know
Anthony,
who that is, so.
he was a very solid player.
'Kay.
I guess is where I'd put him at.
Either way, I mean, the argument is about how deep your wide receiver core is. I
Right,
mean,
for
clearly the top 2 are better. That's not
Yeah,
even an argument.
sure.
But then,
Agreed.
I don't know. To me, just having a fourth or like a first round receiver as your 4th receiver is pretty insane.
Yeah, absolutely.
Either way, both great receiving cores, clearly. But
Yeah, sticking to the Patriots again, Sony Michel, 21 carries for 85 yards and a touchdown. He's the number 1 back. And Bill Belichick doesn't typically pick a number 1 back, especially after drafting Damian Harris. It's kind of surprising to see Michel in both weeks. He's clearly the guy. Like, they really prefer him. Even though he had a 15-attempt, 14-yard game week 1, they stuck with him and they said, all right, you're going. Obviously, game script, they're up the whole game, so they're running the game. But I like Michel.
I like him a lot. I mean, as a running back 1, not as much.
No,
but I
no,
mean,
no.
I do think he'll end probably a top 15 running back.
Most normal games,
Yep.
I expect him to get around 10 to 15 carries. I think the 21 was just game script a lot of times in this. I mean, especially looking at last game, how he had 33% snap share and only had 15 carries, stuff like that. I mean, they're going to continue to use James White. Rex Burkhead actually looks like the clear-cut number 2 right now as far as rushing.
I think you could argue 15 to 20 carries for Michel.
That's what I was kind of thinking.
You think so?
Yeah.
I mean, like, what would you say, 10 to 15?
Yeah.
That's some running back 2s get that.
Yeah.
And that's what
That's
you're
like
looking at with
what
Sean
Mark
McCoy. You're
Ingram
looking at
gets.
Mark, yeah.
And I think Mark Ingram's the number running back 1 there, but they even more spread the ball to the running backs.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see.
Burkhead's not going to get carries, right? So it's really between Michel. They don't like Harris, and he's still injured.
But I think Burkhead has been getting carries, though.
I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing it's only like 3 to 4 a
Yeah.
game.
Has he hit 10 carries? Or will he hit 10 carries?
Yeah, will he is another question.
I bet you they'll probably run the ball 25 to 30 times a game, which is pretty reasonable, I think.
Yeah.
Burkhead has 5 and 8 attempts, but to me that proves our point.
Yeah.
I think when Damian Harris comes back, it'll be interesting. But I don't know. I guess I'm just trying to argue for Michelle there. I think 15 to 20 carries is enough to put him at a solid RB2.
Commenting on Damian Harris, by the way, when we said he was injured, he's not injured.
Oh, really?
They just put him on like the I don't know what they call it for the NFL, but it's like a healthy scratch is what they call it. He's been on that the last 2 weeks, so I don't know what's going on in that situation.
Sounds like they just don't. Interesting.
They might not like
it's
him.
like the same thing as injured almost to me. He hasn't been active, is what we'll say.
Yeah,
is what I mean by
exactly. I don't know if it's just a rookie thing or it could be an active roster issue. Is kind of what I've been thinking lately, especially with bringing on Antonio Brown. It could be something related to that.
Okay, sure.
We'll see.
What do we think about the Denver running back situation with Philip Lindsay getting 13 attempts for 36 yards, and on the other side of the coin, and 4 receptions. On the other side of the coin, Royce Freeman gets 11 carries for 54 yards, 7 targets in the receiving game, and 5 catches for 48 yards. Freeman outscoring Lindsay this week in fantasy and kind of in real life. I mean, regression was coming for Damian Williams, and it looks like it already is here for Lindsay. I mean, what's to think about that situation?
This is like one of the things I actually brought up in the offseason with you guys was I was saying don't forget about Royce Freeman. Like, he's still their first-round draft pick. Lindsay's like, he had a great season. He's their guy. But I don't know. That was the reason I wasn't willing to give up a first-round pick for Lindsay. Or that Matt wanted to give him up for. Because I was like, yes, Lindsay's still starting. I understand that. But Freeman played a lot better in the second half of last year. And they can clearly like him. And he looks talented. I don't know.
I do want to point out that Royce Freeman was drafted in the 3rd round.
Oh, was he in the third round?
So I don't think they've invested too much. I mean, this does help, obviously, quite a bit. And I think they want him to be the running back of the future. But I don't think it's his backfield yet. I think it's kind of a Penny Carson situation where
That's a great comparison.
Even if he has a good game, I mean, have you guys watched like those two players? Penny is, Lindsay's electric, honestly.
Oh, for sure.
Watching him, he's insane. And I think they both have their purpose, but I think it's Lindsay's field for now.
I think it's a good comparison. Penny Carson or even Eckler Jackson.
Yep.
But Eckler Jackson such that they have a similar situation as Penny Carson, almost. It's like the thunder and lightning, but I think, like, I don't know where I'm going with that. It made sense in my head, but yeah, I don't know. Regardless, Lindsay's stock is down, and I think that's a great move for Matt to get rid of him.
Yes.
Yeah,
not worth a first anymore.
No, I 100% agree. Yeah, the funny thing about my team is, like, there's nothing to talk about. Leonard Fournette, he's still getting. I'm not worried at all. Yes, he only got 12 points and only 15 carries for 47 yards, but they're gonna keep feeding him the ball, and he actually looks better than last year. As far as, like, just watching him, he looks better.
How do you feel about Foles being injured, impacting that offense?
I never see. This is actually an interesting argument because whenever a quarterback gets injured, there's always the question. Depending on who the backup is, if it's a young guy, which in this case it's Gardner Minshew. There's always two sides of this coin. There's side one, they're going to run the ball more because they have an experienced quarterback. But then there's side two of they're going to stack the box with 8 guys. And I've always kind of come to this consensus that I think that it cancels out. But what do you guys think about that?
Yeah. I mean, I do think it cancels out a little bit. They did seem to throw even a decent amount with the stash in there. So I don't know. I'm not worried about him either. If he can stay on the field, I think he's high RB2 still. Mm-hmm. So I think he's still fine.
Yeah, Gardner Minshew apparently was doing his stretches in the locker room with his jockstrap on. Just his jockstrap on. And so the players were walking by him, and he's just doing stretches like, hey, guys.
Definitely not a 70s porn star.
Oh, I love him. I actually, if I'm Jacksonville, I'm excited for him, like, honestly.
He'll sell tickets.
Yeah, what
absolutely.
A 5th round draft pick, right? I mean,
something like that, yeah.
He looks great so far, honestly, for a rookie.
And DJ Chalk is still having a good rapport with him, too, which is really encouraging to see.
Yeah, those two have been fun to watch.
Yeah.
Even Westbrook's been pretty good, though, still, too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yep, we already talked about Juju Smith-Schuster for me. Similar thing with Michael Thomas. And Sammy Watkins got 13 targets this week, so I'm definitely not worried about him. He just didn't haul them all in. And it's kind of a weird game against Oakland. I don't know. I like Demarcus Robinson a lot. I like McCole Hardman as stocks up, but I don't think that neither of those influence Watkins' value.
Yeah, I'm not worried. If you are worried, sell him to me.
No, I'm not.
I think without Tyreek in there, he's honestly a high wide receiver too. Like, you're even looking at it, 13 targets. Sometimes, he got 49 yards in this game, those 13 targets could just as easily be 180 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he could be hit or miss, but if the 11 points is a miss, I'm not too concerned.
No, yeah. And that's kind of the story of my team, I feel like, is that I have all these super good players that are just having like their average, like even slightly less than average weeks.
Like OJ Howard.
Oh, that's a conversation. Let's talk about him.
Slightly less than average.
Slightly less than average.
I like it. That's a great segue. OJ Howard, week 1, 5 targets, 4 receptions, 32 yards. That was against San Francisco 49ers. Week 2, against a much better Carolina defense, in my opinion. 0 targets, 90 higher snap percentage, but he was a blocker most of the game. And I do know I can stat drop this one. He ran 52% routes, which is really bad for like what you want in your fantasy studs. I mean, it's like conversely, like Kelsey runs like 80 to 85% routes on like a 90% snap count. So it's like, or like maybe 95, I think. So whether I'm worried about OJ Howard or not, I will answer the question with yes, I am worried. But am I going to start him next week? The answer is yes. And I think he is still a tight end 1 to start next week because his potential is there. And I actually do think it's possible that Arians could realize like, hey, maybe we should actually work him in a little bit more.
Did you hear Arians kind of give him some crap after the game?
Which to me, I always feel like is a positive sign.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
I think it's like, oh yeah, he played bad. So that Howard like takes the hint and then said, all right, get out there and play better kind of thing. They give him more routes. He catches more balls. Here's a dollar bet. I got to make another one. OJ Howard scores 15 points or more this week.
Who do they play?
They play
the Giants.
Very, very bad defense in the New York Giants.
Yeah, I won't bet against that.
Yeah, me neither.
Damn it!
Just because of the matchup.
Not against the Giants.
That's
Yeah.
a reasonable dollar bet.
Give me like the Ravens or the Bears. I'd take that any day.
Yeah, and I'm not going to say like 20 because that's not going to happen. That's too touchdown dependent. So anyway, I am worried about Howard, but I still think he's a TE1.
So where does he finish? Because I mean, to me, tight end 1. I mean, literally means nothing. Like Greg Olsen could easily be a tight end 1. To me, saying is he part of the tight ends that matter, which is essentially Evan Ingram, top 3, now maybe Mark Andrews. But I mean, is he still a part of that group where you would rather have him over anyone else? You know what I mean?
No.
So he's not part of that group anymore.
No, we talked about this before the show where, he used to be part of the Evan, like you said, I think you just said that. Ingram and Howard were both like they could be tight end 1s based on Arians, the question marks behind Arians and the question mark behind Daniel Jones for New York. And now I think it's safe to say that he's not going to be a TE1, but I think he could still rebound to basically being where he was to start seeing be like a top 5. Or 5 and 4, like being the 4th or 5th tight end, but not necessarily finish their scoring wise.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
It's funny you say that because I also think one of your other tight ends has fallen out of that range, and that's David Njoku.
Yep.
Agreed.
I think with seeing Baker kind of going through those little like tough struggles, I think really hurts Njoku because I think he's willing to go to Landry and Beckham more than he is willing to go to him.
They still have Chubb and
Yep.
Yeah, I actually think Beckham hurt his value quite a bit, without even realizing.
I mean,
it.
not even counting the fact that Njoku's going to be out for a while, so I guess it kind of
that
doesn't
was,
matter.
It was a
But
bad hit.
oh, that was an awful hit.
Yeah, my third tight end is Hunter Henry, so I think my tight end situation is still fine, but it's
Right.
definitely stock all down on all of them. So,
Yep.
I
so
think
not great.
It goes from your tight end being a slight difference maker to being just a tight end, really.
Yeah.
So
And Barber actually does have Ingram. Nothing to talk about there. He got 8 targets, only 48 yards, but maybe there is something to talk about because Daniel Jones is coming in. But I think we can all agree that the thing to talk about is just that his stock is up with Jones coming in, right?
Yeah.
I love Ingram. I think he's to me he's a tier of his own. After the top 3, it's honestly close to putting him with Kittle. To me, if we're talking about this year specifically, I mean that amount of targets is tough to pass up. I mean, you even spoke about how rookie quarterbacks target their tight end more just because they're so risk averse. I don't know. He's supported every valuation so far this year.
He's only going to stick with him more these next couple of starts too because Sterling Shepard and Golden Tate are both out, and that receiving core is just it's awful without them. That's kind of like where with Daniel Jones I'd be a little worried too. Is he might not. I was reading about this. This is about somebody suggested they're like, don't start Daniel Jones.
Yeah, he's a terrible quarterback.
Well, no, that's not exactly the point they were trying to get to. They were trying to say, don't start him until both Golden Tate and Sterling Shepard come out and he has his weapons, so that way you know what to use them. I mean, trying to basically come out with awful wide receivers can really ruin a quarterback's confidence.
Yep, and that's why I would not bet on anything for Daniel Jones' career. And I think he was overdrafted. He was overhyped. He's over everything. He had a good preseason. It's the only positive for him. But I hate Daniel Jones.
I know you do.
I said that last week. Maybe that's just a recurring meme for me. Devontae Adams, 20 points. The Vikings got shelled in the first quarter and rebounded, but Adams is a huge part of that offense. He's amazing. Tyler Boyd, 10 receptions for 122 yards for Barber. And last week he had a great week. This week another good. Actually, he might not have had a great week because
he got
John
about
Ross took
14
it.
points last week.
Yeah, still a good enough week.
Yeah, he was fine.
But yeah, Boyd is awesome. And does he take a hit with Green out or with Green back in? I should say.
No, I actually don't think so. And last year when Green was out, Boyd was actually worse than when Green was in. So I think this is actually super promising for him, showing that he can actually produce when Green is out, because I know it's what a lot of people were concerned about.
So then maybe Ross takes the hit.
Yes, I think Ross takes a big hit when Green's back.
Interesting.
Yeah, which would be interesting. I think this still affirms, though, especially from last week, that Boyd is the number one guy, in my opinion.
Yeah, with Green out.
Yeah, well, yeah, with Green, yes, with Green out, but I mean, like, there was the John Ross, Tyler Boyd, which way is it going to go? And I was pretty sure it was going to go back to Boyd. Still, like, don't give up on that. Like, John Ross, to me, while he did get a lot of targets last week, is still kind of a home run hitter.
Yeah.
And Tyler Boyd is just such a good possession wide receiver.
I agree. And I mean, one thing that's, I don't know if it really matters for analysis, but it's interesting to me is that he caught all 10 of his targets and for 122 yards. So, I mean, over 12 yards per target, and he caught every single one of them, shows that they have some sort of connection, or he just gets wide open.
Yeah.
So,
game script there with being down 17-41, but I don't disagree.
I just mean they're not just chucking it up. You
Yes,
know what I
right,
mean?
right.
If it was 18 targets for 10 receptions, that'll be a lot less to me than 10 targets.
I hear you. Yeah, I love Boyd. And the funny thing is, his receiving core going into the year was kind of Adams and then question mark as far as how good Boyd and Moore are. But now DJ Moore looks really good with how bad Cam Newton's been. It kind of seems like Moore's stock is up. So I think I think it's just kind of cool. I mean, Barber's team actually looks reasonable from top to bottom. His running backs are weak, but with his receivers playing the way they are and with Engram's stock, we all agree is up. Marvin Jones is kind of the same deal. He's got DeAndre Hopkins at kicker.
Yeah. Did notice on DJ Moore, though, like pretty much all those catches were all slant runs.
Yes.
Just pretty interesting to kind of note.
Interesting, but good in my opinion. For
Yo,
Moore's
absolutely.
value.
It was just like, I think that's kind of why you see the 89 yards, though, is that they were all like 7-yard completions, then run for like 3 more yards and just get a first down. I mean, it worked. He looked good at it. So there's that.
Absolutely. Barber finishing the week with highest score 196. I lost with 142 points. Let's talk about your team, Sam.
Sorry, one other thing
Oh,
I would just very quickly like to point out.
Yeah.
That score against you might be a bit inflated with the 42 points from the defense.
Oh, yeah. I didn't-
Which is obviously insanely good. And I mean, it's New England against Miami. And Barber's team is solid, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But that is inflated by about 25 points probably.
Yeah, we're talking about if both of our defenses scored 0, for example, we would have been close. Like, it would have been a close
almost
matchup.
exactly tied.
Yep.
Yep. So,
Yeah. And that's just all because they're playing Miami.
yeah, I just thought that was interesting.
Yep,
So.
for sure. Yeah, and that's why I'm not worried about my team, honestly, at all, to be honest. So, anyway.
See, it's kind of interesting. The way you think of Daniel Jones is the way I think of your fantasy team.
Yeah, the way I think of Daniel Jones is the way I think of your dating life. That was just a weird.
Pretty successful. Yeah, I don't understand that. Now introducing the dating podcast.
Yeah.
Well, it would just be 50 minutes of silence for you. Oh man! All right, Sam scored 187
sins.
points.
I don't understand.
I did. Oh man, I was hoping for that highest points again, and then Alshon dropped a dud for me.
Yeah, and Laramie scored 146. You got the win. Patrick Mahomes is still amazing. No sophomore. He's a junior, I guess, but no slump for him.
He's a sophomore, basically.
Sure.
Played one game the year before, but yeah, I get
Agreed.
your point.
No signs of a slump. He's a god.
Yeah, man, he's crazy.
He's Dynasty QB1 for the next 15 years. Matt Ryan had a great game with 3 picks still, but I mean, that Atlanta offense is looking really good, even though Ito Smith looks to be their best running back.
Against Philly, too, which
Philly.
does say something to me.
Absolutely. Yeah. Dalvin Cook, holy crap, he's a stud. And he looks really good. And they're feeding him the ball. Like, where does he finish?
That's a good question, man. I've been saying as he came into the season that if he can stay healthy, he has a strong chance at RB5 or above. And he's sure playing like it. Can he stay on the field with all of these touches? I mean, 20 carries this week. What did he have last week? 21.
Yeah.
And then
that's nuts.
sprinkling a few receptions. I don't know if he can stay on the field with this many touches, but while he does, I think he's top tier.
Man.
Yeah, they gotta use Madison a little bit more and just relieve some of that stress because Madison's has also been playing well with the touches he's been getting. And I think just for the longevity of Dalvin Cook and this team, they definitely need to tone it down a little bit. But it's tough. It's tough when you have such an elite talent, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, but for this year alone, I think he can sustain that amount of touches, and I just love him this year. So that's sweet for you, Sam. But on the other side of the coin, Carson's someone to be a little bit worried about. Even after week 1 and the preseason, like he's the target share guy. Now they give Penny a lot more touches, and Carson didn't look that great, right? I mean,
glad you brought it up. I did watch that game today because I was concerned. If you look at his stat line,
yeah,
he played fine. I mean, exactly 4 yards per carry. That's average, right? I mean, it's not terrible, not great. 3 receptions for 27 yards. It's fine. I thought he had 2 fumbles. This says 1 right now. But
he fumbled one and didn't lose it.
Okay. So either way, so he did have 2 fumbles then,
I think
right?
so.
Overall, both of those to me were legitimate. One, the linebacker literally didn't get blocked and he got hit before he even had the ball. And the other one, I think it was TJ Watt punched it out of his hands. So I agree. They gave, what did they give Penny? 10 carries?
10, but he ran for 62.
He did.
So
and he had one big run.
Yep.
Which is where he got most of that.
Right. Yep.
I don't know. I think a lot of people overreact. I think I'm still pretty confident that he can end low running back 1, high running back 2.
So maybe his value just regresses to being what everyone thought he was like 3 months ago before everything changed.
People, okay, like beginning of this last offseason, people had him like low RB2, high RB3.
Yeah.
And then by the time the season started, people had him at the RB5 overall.
Yeah.
Which is insane. There's nothing really that happened. So, I mean, I kind of maintain high RB2. I'm fine with that, and I think that's where he'll end.
I actually 100% agree. I think as much as this looks good for Penny, I think it's too much to read into it, especially from what we saw last year with Penny too, where he'd have good games and would outperform Carson, and yet Seattle still stuck with Carson.
Penny's a good running back, as we're learning, I think.
But they both are.
Is he, though? Like, I was watching that game.
Yeah.
He looks chunky, man.
Does he?
And not that, I mean, he looks fine. I think he's going to be a good enough running back, but he didn't do anything special, in my eyes at least.
Sure. Yeah, what do we think about Joe Mixon? Only 5 points. He's injured now. I think he's injured, even though he doesn't have a sleeper injury designation. I mean, only a 50% snap percentage in favor of Bernard, I'm guessing. Got the other like 40% or something.
He's not promising.
Yeah, I mean, what's up with that? Do you guys know? Any opinions?
I don't know. I mean, obviously Laramie's nervous about him too. He's shopping him in the all chat.
Yeah.
I am nervous for him, honestly. I mean, the injury concern is one thing. His yards per carry is another thing. And then kind of with that, his offensive line is bottom 2 in the league with Miami.
Yeah.
I mean, we've always talked about, right? Running backs isn't nearly as much about talent as it is about situation. And with that situation, can he get better?
No. Yeah, I'm worried too. Anything to add, Cody?
I mean, I think potentially he could be a good buy low target right now, for sure. The only issue is I don't know how high I would put him, but I think obviously he's going to be playing better than 5 points per week. I mean, I think RB2 is about where he'll end up now versus the RB1 where everybody was putting him. I mean, I think he'll still be fine. He still can do enough in that offense. And, he's been injured, and I'm sure hopefully as the season progresses, he should be fine. I mean, I'm a little concerned about the injury. The injury is definitely alarming, but I don't know. If you can get him for an affordable price, I don't think it's a bad ad.
Top 20 Dynasty running back?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so too.
Yeah. I mean, probably 15th, I'd say.
Yep. So I agree with that. Marlon Mack had the same amount of carries and targets, just not as great of an efficiency, but that's to be expected against the Tennessee defense. Moncrief is droppable. I believe that.
Didn't he get dropped? Or there was at least rumors that he would be.
By Pittsburgh?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, yes, he might. He's the rumors. It's not official yet, but he's definitely droppable as far as a dynasty. Even in a dynasty, like I think he's droppable.
I mean, what happened? He had 10 targets the first week.
Yeah.
He was clearly a part of their offense.
That's a great question.
And he was the top one coming out of camp.
I wish I knew more.
Drops have been the issue for
dropping the
him.
ball.
Yeah, he's had a ton of drops from like what I can just see really quick, especially when the leading news on him is Dante Moncrief, another drop pass.
Yeah.
And that's all it says about the last game. So
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's the fact he couldn't catch anything. And I mean, he hasn't looked good at all either. So
Yeah, and with a combination of Deontay Johnson being drafted, James Washington's stock going up with Mason Rudolph, and Juju Smith-Schuster still being there, with Vance McDonald looking a lot better.
yep,
I think he's dynasty droppable.
I agree.
I agree.
Yeah. Tyrell Williams isn't, though, and he had a great week last week, and now he's continuing it this week. He got 25 points last week, 15 points this week. He's got a ton of snap percentage, and he's got a lot of targets. Wide receiver 1 in Oakland, I believe, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and so, I mean, that's stuck up from the start of the season. Ever since all the AB stuff happened, I think that kind of helped him out.
Tyrell Williams to me is a lot like John Brown. I think he's really only fantasy relevant because he's the number 1 wide receiver in a bad wide receiving core. Because, I mean, watching him play on the Chargers was nothing special when he was over there. So I think he's fine for this year. Dynasty-wise, I don't really have high hopes for him.
Sure. So John Brown or Tyra Williams this year?
John Brown.
Sam, who do you take? Make it a dollar bet.
Ooh, I'll take Tyrell.
Oh, yeah.
dollar bet.
The Oakland all-time leader passing yards. They need to go to somebody.
That's hilarious. Nice. Another dollar bet in the books, and Corey Davis is stock way down another week in a row. AJ Brown didn't really have a great week either, and I think Mariota kind of looked like he was struggling again. But you kind of wanted a data point that was up this week for Corey Davis since he was so low at the floor. Man, I don't know. Delaney Walker gets a lot of targets, and AJ Brown is a good receiver. And Adam Humphries on that team only takes targets too. He's kind of a target magnet. So Davis is a sell high or a buy low? Sell low or buy low?
Certainly not a sell.
Is he a buy low?
Coming off an average of 3.4 points this year.
Yep.
Man, I don't know. If anyone's still a believer, I will take any first for him next year. So, yeah, if anyone's a 2020 first they want to give me for him, I would absolutely take that. I was a believer coming into this year. Even after 2 weeks, I'm honestly not as much anymore. I think as long as Mariota's there, it's just going to be terrible.
I'm not going to be the buyer here, but I would be definitely a buy low candidate on Corey Davis. This is his contract year. He's up after this year. I think there's a decent chance he leaves Tennessee after this year, especially with the report AJ Brown. I think he has a good possibility of going somewhere that might be better than Mariota after it.
Fine, you convince me. If anyone offers me 3 first, that's all.
Sounds
Make
like
it 4 and you got a deal.
Seems like a fair price. The Dallas receiving core is really good. I think there's 3 legitimately startable receivers in Dallas, and that's Gallup, Cooper, and Randall Cobb now. And Gallup's value doesn't change anything to me. He's still just great. I think he's still a solid wide receiver 2, maybe a little bit lower end wide receiver 2.
Well, he's going to be out 2 to 4 weeks now with an injury.
Agreed. I know. I definitely knew that. All right, when he comes back,
Yeah.
he's still good. I like that receiving core. So I guess to your point, I didn't think about that. I actually never heard that this week until I'm seeing it just now.
That was on like Tuesday that they said he was going to be out.
So then that's
or, like,
Cobb and
yesterday.
Cooper up then.
Yeah. Definitely.
And Witten.
Yeah.
Pretty well.
I think Cobb's going to be the main beneficiary of it personally. I think Cooper's going to get his normal targets, normal stuff. I don't think much changes there, but I think definitely everything goes up for Cobb, who's already shown to be a good viable asset for starting. I mean, he's gotten targets, he's gotten looks.
Yeah. Sam's major transaction, Travis Kelce, scored 25.7 points, and he's going to continue to be the number 1 target in Kansas City. But Mark Andrews outscored him, and man, does Lamar Jackson really like him. And Sam, you really liked him before the season too, I remember. And you were kind of just talking about how everyone's hyping up because of how he ended last year, and he looks legit, man. He's good. I think he's a top 10 tight end rest of the way.
Oh, yeah. I think he's higher than that. I mean, honestly, I would go as far as to say that he is the tight end behind Evan Ingram to have in Dynasty. I think he's tight end 5 right now. I loved him going into this year, but not as much as he's performing right now. What a lot of people don't know, and I've told pretty much everyone about this, but he was on pace last year to set the rookie tight end record for receiving yards if he played the entire season. So he's honestly just a talent, and Lamar loves him.
Sweet. Yeah. Miles Sanders, 6.7 points. That I don't think that's really surprising because he's the leader of a committee that is a true running back by committee in the NFL. So I'm not surprised, but it is a little underwhelming of a stat line, I guess. I don't know. Sam, do you have cold feet with Miles Sanders?
No, not really. I mean, I like Miles Sanders still.
Sorry, I had to make the marriage joke.
I did not know where you were going with that one at all either.
I'm sorry.
I don't know if I missed something.
Yeah, I was like, did Sam really like? I mean, I knew you kind of like Miles Sanders, but I was like, did Sam love Miles Sanders?
No, it's a cold feet reference.
No,
So.
Sorry.
Would you say you object
Yeah.
to Miles Sanders?
Nope, not cold feet for Miles Sanders or my marriage.
Definitely not in Dynasty.
No,
But
no,
this
yeah,
year-
oh yeah, this year I'd prefer not to start him.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought we were talking about the marriage.
Yeah,
Dynasty Marriage League. I'm definitely going to get one PPR this week for being in the reception. All right. I'll be here all week.
so triggered. No, yeah, I think he'll be great when he's actually on a team that utilizes him and gives him the ball 20 times a game. But while he's in the Eagles, he won't get that.
But he's going to be in the Eagles for a while. So
True. Yeah, maybe they'll just figure it out and actually use him.
hopefully.
And
I don't know.
not use Jordan Howard.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. I don't like Jordan Howard either, even though I own him. I used to like him. But yeah, I don't know. Anyone else to talk about on that? Do you want to talk about Christian Kirk, or is that just kind of normal?
Kinda. I
Go
want to
for
give
it.
Cody props because he loved Christian Kirk more than I did before this season start. But yeah, you too. I don't know. Kyler seems to love him and Fitzgerald, which is really great for both of them.
Absolutely. Let's talk about Mike Reed's and Ben Fowler's matchup. Michael Reed is 2-0 now after scoring 190 about points this week. I mean, let's talk about our league. Is Mike Reed someone you believe in?
I mean, what is his power ranking now?
That's funny. I don't know. Is he a playoff team? Or is this just his team? Maybe let's talk about this after we talk about his team.
Okay.
And we'll think about it. Let it ruminate a bit. Because Russell Wilson had 25 points. Whatever. Standard. Nick Chubb, 21 points, went off. And I don't know. Yeah, another standard thing. I mean, that's not standard. That's a little bit standard plus in my opinion. But yeah, Kerryon Johnson had a great week. They finally gave him more touches. Actually, never mind. They only gave him like 14 touches, but he scored the touchdown, and the receptions with yards were great. I mean, Kerryon Johnson is an underutilized running back.
Yes.
What?
Nothing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I mean, he himself has even said that he doesn't want to be a bell cow.
Yeah.
So,
but they
that's
dropped
another
C.J.
story.
Anderson.
They did. Didn't they
Yeah,
pick
but
up Ty Johnson or something? Or
They
They drafted Ty Johnson,
okay.
and they really like him, and I really like him. But I think both Kerryon and Ty kind of can complement each other. So I don't know. I think there's reason to be that Kerryon Johnson could just get better.
I think the story for Michael Reed, for me personally, is from what I can look at, is that all of his prospect wide receivers are hitting. Like every single one is like just absolutely playing to their maximum right now. I mean, Godwin's looking really good. Goodwin, I mean, he got 3 receptions for 71 yards and a touchdown. Seems a little lucky if you ask me. But
Yeah, I actually don't think Goodwin. I think Debo's actually looking pretty good, and Kittle's their wide receiver one essentially.
but
yeah, I mean, go ahead. Sorry.
oh, I was just gonna say, to me, it just feels like, at least this week, this is like the most of what you hope these wide receivers
Yeah.
will all do.
Except for
like every
Kupp.
single one.
At his flex. That's kind of a weird thing that he has Cup as his flex because Cup theoretically is his wide receiver two, if not one.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I mean by that is that they all played points wise up to their maximum or around there, wherever I view them at essentially being. I mean, Kenny Golladay getting 28 points is because I think out of everyone there, I like Kenny Golladay the most, and then I go Godwin, and then I probably go Cup, and then I go Goodwin for me personally. But you know, these were guys that he drafted that were just young wide receivers that I think he was hoping in a couple years became their team's respectable number one wide receivers and something he could grow with. And so far, they've all honestly been kind of playing like it.
Well, he did trade for at least Godwin, by the way. But he also had one big miss with Dante Pettis, which is pretty unfortunate. I think everyone loved Pettis coming, or most people loved Pettis coming in the year. Shout out to Magnuson. He did not like him. Which was clearly correct. He's been terrible. But, I mean, I think that's kind of the strength of Mike Reed's team, which it's weird to say, but it's his starting lineup. I mean, he has no draft capital and he doesn't really have a bench. But like, if you think about his team, like let's say we put Cup in at instead of Goodwin, because I'm not a huge fan of Goodwin either. And then when Geis comes back, we have Geis as his flex. He's got a really solid young team, honestly. I think he's a playoff team.
The 6th one, probably.
But right now he's winning the division.
Yeah.
Yep.
It'll be interesting to see how Obi comes back, if he does.
Yeah, he's also got a glaring hole at tight end.
I still put Rudolph in the tier of it doesn't matter. He's good. He's good enough.
I think it does matter tier, like because he's not. I don't think he's a tight end 1. I don't think it does matter.
But tight end 1 doesn't mean anything to me. Like to me, tight end 7 is essentially equivalent to tight end 18 because I think there's so many of those players where all it takes is 1 touchdown in a game and they're equivalent to any of the other tight ends.
But I think there are guys that have higher ceilings than him, so it does matter. I get your point, but I've never agreed with that idea behind tight ends.
And that's fine.
I think there's 3 tight ends. There are 3 tiers of tight end in the top 20. And it's the guys that are like they're not that great, but they have a high ceiling, and then there's the guys that they're not that great and they just need a touchdown, but they don't have a high ceiling. And I think that's Kyle Rudolph.
Sure. And I guess in the past he's had a higher floor than he does. Well, he still had 5 targets, which is actually pretty good.
But
for one of these guys.
Do you guys know if Irv Smith is taking anything from him?
He has not been. They just don't throw. They haven't been throwing, really.
I guess he's getting the young tight end treatment. So, yeah, I guess at the end of the day, yeah, that's his power ranking 6. Is that where you put Reed? That's his power ranking to answer his team's question?
Probably 5 or 6, yeah, I'd say.
Sounds reasonable.
He doesn't really have top tier talent, but like love Chubb, love Carry On, both low running back ones. All 3 of those receivers I'd put at probably high wide receiver 2, right? I mean, Cup debatably being his worst, either that or Godwin.
Yep.
And then his tight end's nothing special, but I don't know. Got a fine lineup through and through.
He actually does, and he was one that identified himself as a seller for whatever reason, which I disagree with at the time and clearly still disagree with now. So that's all of Mike Reed's team. Let's just talk about Fowler's team now. Dak Prescott, we talked about him earlier. He's awesome. Holy crap. Like, solid. I think he's a buy high in Dynasty. Like,
he might be.
Especially if you're trying to compete this year or like in the next couple of years.
And he's gotten so much hate since he started his career, but he's really grown, and I think finally people are starting to not hate him.
Yep.
Yeah, I was one of those people. I really didn't like him that much, and this year he's finally starting to kind of prove me wrong
like
a little
legitimately
bit.
prove it.
Yeah, it took a little bit to come around the curve because he showed signs of being really good, but then he just couldn't consistently do it. I'm not. How do I put this? I'm never completely sold on a guy until I've seen it replicated over multiple years. A prime example of that to me has always been kind of Cam Newton. Cam Newton to me always gets treated or was being treated like he was a top 3 quarterback, and I don't feel like looking back on his career like that was ever justified. I mean, one of those seasons was when he took his team to the Super Bowl, and I think he was then, but obviously the next season I don't feel like he was a top 3 quarterback.
I agree with that. Yeah. Saquon Barkley is the best running back in the league talent-wise and could arguably be the best in fantasy, just nuts, even on a shit. I mean, he honestly,
it doesn't matter.
I think he is Barry Sanders in the sense that he's going to be on a bad team for quite a while now, but it doesn't matter because he's that good. He's in a tier of his own. He's unbelievable.
He's one of the strongest running backs I've seen and the fastest. I mean, he already has the second highest sprint speed for a running back, and I think it's at like 21.6 miles per hour this year that they caught him at. The only person above him was Cordero Patterson.
Unreal.
Like, that's nuts to me.
And he has hands too.
Yeah.
Which, just to add to it, I mean, he's the complete package. You really can't get a better player.
If he stays healthy, I think he's one of the top 5 running backs of all time.
Yes, I agree.
We can already say that. Like,
yeah,
I completely agree.
He's so talented.
Yeah, and we're witnessing it. It's pretty special.
Yeah.
Damian Williams, we already talked about earlier, but reason to be concerned for sure.
9 carries, 8 yards. That's a fun one.
Awful.
And for Fowler's team, who wasn't necessarily looking to compete anyway this year, I think that might be enough to kind of further cement that he's not really trying to compete and he's a seller now.
It could be. He was kind of one of those in-between teams, though,
Yep.
too. Because, I mean, he does have... You look at his team, he's got Adam Thielen and A.J. Brown and Deshaun Jackson as his starting wide receivers. So, like,
but to me, those are perfect examples of sell candidates for him now.
they are now.
Yep.
But, I mean, if he was having a good year, he can just run those guys out. It's a solid receiving core.
Yep.
But... yeah, I mean, he really could go either way, I think.
And I think this is kind of where I start to have a little... I'm not exactly sure what to think about it. Because I feel like he should have been like this already. As soon as he sold Julio Jones to Trujillo, I think he should have just started being in sell mode. And even looking back then, I mean, maybe he could still get good value, but think about Antonio Brown's value during this offseason when people were trying to trade for him. Like, people were worried he was going to be on Oakland, but a lot of people were still like, okay, yeah, but he's still a number 1 wide receiver on any team. Like, he's maybe like number 12 through 8 as far as a wide receiver on Oakland, just for the risk. And now looking at him, it's like, you look at all that risk on him now, it's like, he just loses so much value. But maybe that's an interesting question, is even with all this risk on him, is he a guy that Fowler should try to trade?
Yeah.
And I tend to agree with you. I think right now even with this allegation that came out, the fact that I haven't heard anything more about it, really, I think this is the safest time to try to sell him. And I think if he doesn't do it soon, my personal thoughts with Antonio Brown is I could see something happening.
Yep. 100% agree.
I mean, one question, though, is do you guys really don't think he can compete at all? Like, has no chance? Because, I mean, he's 3rd highest in points right now. And if AB can play, if Adam Thielen can pick it up, I mean, he has Barkley, and we all agree that Prescott's good.
Yes, I think he can compete. And I don't want to give anyone advice, I guess, but to me, he is the number 1 team set up to sell and still compete, because he has cornerstones of Dak Prescott and Barkley. And I think that's, to me, I also think you could sell Breida. Like, he just has a lot of guys to sell, in my opinion, which kind of informs me that he shouldn't try to compete. If they were all buy low, if they're all buy high guys that we were talking about, I'd be like, okay, then maybe he should compete. But they're all sell high guys in my eyes.
On the flip side, I would even say, actually, for him, if he really wanted to, would be start Aaron Jones over Damian Williams, because I think Aaron Jones is a solid RB2.
Wait, he's not starting Aaron Jones?
He started Damian Williams over him.
That's questionable. And Breida, that's also questionable.
Well, he started Breida in the flex, but
still.
Sure. Either way, I think he should start Aaron Jones over Damian Williams. And then, if you really want to, he could try to trade for, say, a good tight end. Because Vernon Davis, to me, is just not... He's fine, but I wouldn't want him as a competing team. Like, either try to get another good tight end or get a good flex play. Especially maybe if you want to sell off Breida for a tight end. I think that would honestly be perfect, because I think Breida's at debatably his highest value right now that he's going to be at.
Yes.
Especially with Mozart possibly moving in on some parts. I don't know. Undetermined there.
But
he
must start.
I think he needs to make a couple moves to be competitive, and I don't think it would be that tough for him to go down that route either. I think he just needs to choose which one.
Yeah.
That I agree with, yes.
And I lean towards selling.
Yep.
I agree, but I mean, the goal of playing fantasy, even in Dynasty, is to win, right? So
yeah, but if you can set yourself for better success to win... Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine. There's no guarantee that your future picks will pay off anyway. So,
True.
like, if you have a chance to win now, I mean, and who knows, maybe 3 weeks down the line, if he loses the next 2 out of 3 games and he starts 2-3 or 2-4 or whatever, maybe he'll sell then, and maybe AB has a couple of huge games, or Adam Thielen picks it up and they're back at their highs. Because, I mean,
for sure.
I know I myself, I'm sure a few other people reached out about Damian Williams before the year, but you can't sell him now. I mean, he's worth nothing.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, is he even worth a second at this point? Because I wouldn't pay for that.
But maybe he's going to get worse, and now is the time to sell, in my eyes. If someone believes he's going to rebound.
I mean, what do you think he's worth is right now?
Oh man, mid-round, second rounder.
Maybe, yeah. And is that even worth it compared to just taking the chance that he gets better?
Yeah, I see your
I
point.
mean, any starting running back on Kansas City is worth a first.
Right.
But
I wasn't even willing in the offseason to give a first-round pick for him. I hated him.
I would have. I mean, he's an absolute jag, but he's on Kansas City, so it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, but it does now.
Yeah, one final note on his team is he does have Trey Burton for his tight end, which I think he's a serviceable dynasty tight end. I don't know.
I agree.
If Trubisky, like, his value to me is directly correlated to Trubisky's value, like how good Trubisky actually does. So,
yeah, to me, Burton to me isn't any better or worse than Vernon Davis for this year.
Okay, for this year.
I'd take Burton personally, but neither is great.
Yeah.
So that matchup wrapped up again, Mike Reed won by 30 points, 188 to 158.
Big week.
Yeah, Mike Reed's 2-0, and maybe we'll talk about him later for our matchup of next week. But now let's talk about Jake O'Brien. He finally had a bit of a rebound week.
This is an exciting one.
Matt's favorite pick for number one power ranked team scored 160 points still, so his max score is 160 for the year after 2 weeks. Who would have saw that coming? Adamy, yeah, his AC. Oh wow, ACT manual already in the mail. Good for him. He only scored 113 points, but I guess for some reason I've been waiting to talk about this all week because I watched like a lot of that Browns Cleveland game after the fact, and I was watching a lot of Le'Veon Bell and Baker Mayfield. And Baker Mayfield is sophomore slump. We talked about that earlier, but man, Le'Veon Bell. One of the questions I had going into the season was, did Pittsburgh make Bell or did Bell make Pittsburgh? And holy crap, Le'Veon Bell is like an interesting case of a guy that isn't explosive necessarily, but he's like the most patient guy that is like super elusive at just getting around people and you don't even realize it. Like he's like, oh, I'm about to get tackled, just bam, makes a quick juke. Oh wow, he just got 10 more yards. But he doesn't like burst through holes necessarily. Like I don't know. What I'm getting at is the style that he runs in, I could see him being a successful running back for a while.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, every risk that I had concerns with about him going into the year has been completely fulfilled with
In
me.
2
Like,
weeks,
I'm completely fine. I did watch that entire game, and given what did he have? 2/3 of the team's total touches went to him, give or take. But that is the thing about him is he's so patient. The Jets can't block for anything. I mean, like we've talked about, like I've said before. We've talked about that it's all about situation over talent, but he might be one of the few exceptions to the case. I mean, who did they have last year as a running back? I mean, Crowell,
Bilal Powell, maybe.
Bilal Powell,
Yeah.
EJ McGuire.
Yeah.
It was not good.
No.
He's played pretty dang well. I mean,
Yeah.
the efficiency hasn't been insane, but
It's not going to be on that team. Not with that offensive line. It's atrocious.
he's played fine.
Yeah. And he's a great pass catcher.
Yeah.
10 receptions and 10 targets. Yeah. I mean, I doubted it because again, this whole steer effect, but I'm starting to think Le'Veon Bell is one of the 4 running backs that are actually talented in the NFL that don't need a situation to be molded around them.
Yes.
It's to reiterate, because we talked about this a lot now on the show, it's Alvin Kamara, Saquon Barkley, Dalvin Cook, and Le'Veon Bell. I think it's those 4 guys are the guys that transcend offense.
I always think it's willing the fact you don't put your own guy in there.
Elliott?
Yeah.
I think he's like the best of the next tier.
Sure.
I actually don't think Elliott's that talented. He's just really durable.
He's got the best offensive line.
He's got the best offensive
debatably
line.
ever. I
Yep.
mean, like, yeah.
No, I'm willing to give that to him.
Wasn't it DeMarco Murray that ran for 1,600 yards behind a similar offensive line
Mm-hmm.
on Dallas? It's
Yeah. Oh, don't get me wrong. I love Elliott as a dynasty running back because of his offensive line, but he's so close to that tier. But I don't think he's as talented as the other guys. Like these guys are difference makers.
Yeah.
Which is like why I don't think Dallas should have signed him to what they did. Making the highest paid running back is ludicrous to me. So that's what I wanted to start with talking about Jake Obi's team. But Todd Gurley had a good week too. 16 points. Malcolm Brown isn't taking too much away from him. Game script helped a little bit. I don't know. You guys seem to have some thoughts about Gurley.
Go ahead, Cody.
I don't know what to think about him. This is a very positive sign for him, and if he can continue trending in this way, I don't know. He put up fine stats, but it's not the number one Gurley like we wanted, it all going in. I think it's quite clear that he's a lower, or about a mid-tier RB1 to me. Like he's not that top tier anymore.
I think you could argue he was mid-tier RB2, even.
I agree. I mean,
sure.
I mean, that's what he is right now.
Yeah. No,
and
that's
I think
fine.
that's actually fair. He's 17 in standard and 18 in PPR. I actually think that's and considering
this
that
is ignoring the first week for me, ignoring the.
But you
carry
can't really ignore
differential.
the first week because I think it's pretty similar. 70% snap percentage versus 64 snap percentage.
Sure.
14 carries versus 16 carries. 1 reception versus 3 receptions. Like I actually think that it looks like this is kind of what they want Gurley to be, with Malcolm Brown being the 30% to Gurley's 70%.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see how many goal line carries he had this week versus last week because, I mean, Malcolm Brown had 2 goal line carries and got those 2 touchdowns. You give Todd Gurley those 2 touchdowns.
got a great week.
He's got a great week. So, to me, I mean, he had 1 goal line carry for sure. So, if he also had, like, other carries in that red zone, and that's the way it's going to be going forward, I think I put him back up in the RB1 category.
I would, in that case, I would settle and put him like RB15.
Okay.
But sounds like a good dollar bet to me. Or RB15, I'm taking. That's where I
I'm
think
going to be broke. Or super rich, one of the two.
Yeah, I think Todd Gurley is going to be less than RB15, is what I'm saying.
I think he'll be RB15 or higher. Absolutely.
Okay.
He's already, I mean, after these 2 mediocre weeks, quote unquote, he's 18.
And are we saying that that's assuming his health part of this?
Ooh, that's a good point. Health is not.
Okay, so we'll just prorate his stats over the games he plays.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Moving on, let's talk about Edelman because holy crap, in the blowout game he hardly saw anything. But I don't know. I guess is there anything to talk about?
Not really.
Yeah.
I think he'll be fine.
I think there are just like kind of, to be honest, the more I think about now that we've talked about like every wide receiver on the Patriots, I think they all have question marks in a way. Like they all have value of some sort. I liked your boom or bust analysis for Gordon because I actually think I'm starting to think that's just like every one of the Patriots wide receivers because they're able to change their offense so much week to week based on who's getting covered that it seems like any of those guys are just like, you got to start them every week, but you don't really feel happy starting them every week.
It's just whether you're going to get the touchdown or not.
Exactly.
That's what it's felt like.
The touchdown or the targets a lot of time, in my opinion. Like, it's so variable for everyone on that offense, especially with the question marks surrounding Brown. Looks like he's going to play this week, but anyway. Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not too interested in talking about Jarvis Landry. I think he's fine. Mayfield's struggling, doesn't help him too much. John Ross, 25 points, 8 receptions. We kind of already alluded to him. I'm sorry, 8 targets. Yep, 4 receptions. He's had like a duplicate of last week where he's just like a big target in the deep game.
I mean, do you think he's back? Or not back, but starting?
It's encouraging, right?
I mean, if he's wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 PPR right now.
Yeah,
I mean, it's for sure encouraging. I mean, do you think he ends a wide receiver 2 this year?
Ooh. We already talked about how Green should take away some value from him, but not Boyd.
He should, but I mean, wide receiver 2 through 2, give it's only 2 weeks, but still, that's over 100 yards both weeks. That's very impressive. First round draft pick 2 years ago, third year receiver or second year receiver, third year.
I would love to sell him right now. I would love to sell him high. I don't believe it. That's what I think. To answer your question,
I'd be fine to buy it.
Really?
I mean, you assume if he's having a couple of big weeks, it's somewhere in between now and his value last year. But
I would also actually maybe be willing to buy what Sam's putting down. His next matchup is Buffalo. After that, he has Pittsburgh and Arizona. I think that's at least 2 favorable matchups for sure. I mean, I guess you were saying Buffalo's defense has improved a little bit, but
no, Buffalo's defense is the #1 passing defense in the league since 2018. That's all of last year and 2 games this year.
It's pretty damn good.
I'm so surprised to hear that.
I'm also surprised.
But
it's because everybody gets up by 3 touchdowns and just starts running.
It maybe.
That's the truth.
I mean, that one.
Just kidding, I have no idea.
I was thinking that's it too. But even if that's the case, maybe there's still a top 10. If you don't consider.
Right.
So regardless, I don't know. I don't want to do a dollar bet on that one. So
no.
Zach Ertz was Zach Ertz. James Conner was injured and is actually going to see more 8-man boxes in my opinion. So I'm worried about James Conner. His stock is down.
Absolutely.
We already talked about this.
I think even out of all the running backs, he's not very talented at all. And not at all. And he benefited way more from his situation than most of the running backs.
100% agree. Yep. Don't tell Obi that. Hopefully he actually listens to this and then hates us for saying that. So I think that kind of wraps up talking about Obi's team for the week. I think Obi's just fine. I think his stock is down as in a power rankings, but
for sure. But he's still a playoff team.
Still a playoff team, but not the clear #1. In fact, I wouldn't even think you can make an argument that he's #1. #1 is in a weird state right now. I don't know who's #1.
Very weird state. I think we'll have a much better idea after this week.
Yes, agreed. The 3rd data point.
Yep.
Good point.
And all the divisional games for the first round are done.
Yep. Cam Newton, 14 points on Adam's team. He looks bad. Graham Newton, I called him before the show. Yeah. I think that's kind of a lot of people's favorite joke now.
I mean, Adam's real quarterback is Kyler Murray.
Yeah. Agreed. And I don't know why I think he actually should start starting him already next week.
I think he should too. who's a great quarterback. I think any of us would be happy to have him.
Holy shit. Yeah, Kingsbury easily knew how to figure out how to use Kyler Murray because Kyler Murray's throwing he does 90 passes in 2 weeks. Granted, one of those games was overtime, but still. And he's not even running.
No.
So
scrambling.
So is Kyler Murray a top 10 quarterback for the rest of the way?
Yes.
I think so too.
Hard, yes.
I think it's so cool because I wanted him to succeed, and he's looking 100% worth the number 1 overall pick in his first 2 games in the NFL.
Yep. Cody and I were talking about it earlier before you came over. I have him as my Dynasty QB 5.
After Mahomes, Watson, I don't know.
Baker and Lamar Jackson.
And Lamar Jackson, sure.
Yep. After Andrew Luck's done, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
there's
fair. And definitely. So you put Rodgers at 6?
I'd probably not. I think he's lower than that.
Okay.
I think he's too old, and I think he's going down.
Yeah. My debatable push for that was Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
In that
And I think
area.
Carson Wentz is the
interesting.
one you could argue, but I am that high on Kyler Murray now after what I've seen through the first 2 games.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Yeah, if he adds running to the mix, I mean, he's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, and everyone's talked about how he's different. Both Jackson and Murray are the different style of runners where they are very good at avoiding contact. So I don't know. I think both of those guys are really interesting to have and watch.
steal in the early second for Adam this year too.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's a huge pick.
I think, especially now with Daniel Jones being named the starter, I think Eli Manning on Adam's team is droppable.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Like, not if he wasn't before, for sure.
Salvage
But
the
like,
value out of man.
yeah, like, or if you
Yeah.
can, I don't know. Like, I looked at that and I saw Eli Manning was on his bench. I was just like, oh no, he just needs to go, dude.
Yeah.
If you can get a 2029 4th round pick, I would say that's probably worth it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Literally anything is fine.
Yep.
Yeah. Another guy that I think shouldn't be dropped but should be sold is, in my opinion, for Adam, since he's already got his ACT menu in the mail, is Vance McDonald.
100% agree.
Yeah, and we already talked about a team earlier. I can't remember now, but someone had a glaring hort tight end.
Mike Reed.
Yep.
Reed. I don't know, man. Maybe we should get them their numbers so
setting
they
up
can talk.
trade.
We should set up a trade. Like,
If I
honestly,
remember, I think Trujillo also needs a tight end.
He's got Jared Cook, who
he's got-
I'm pretty okay with personally.
but
But
I think McDonald's an upgrade with Rudolph
I think it
in
is,
the mix for the rest of the year.
Yep.
Like, I don't know. I'm just saying McDonald is a great opportunity. I would pay a first for him if I was a competing team that needed a tight end. That's what I'll say.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know if I would.
maybe.
Yeah.
Like, maybe that's a little high, but if I knew it was gonna be a late first of some sort, I would pay that.
Sure.
Sure.
It's fine.
Sanu 7 targets still. Like, yeah, he only got 16 yards, but I think he's fine. The one to really be worried about is Danny Amendola with like 1 target, and I actually think that is kind of going to continue as a Lions fan, because I think it's Hawk, Jones, and Galladay clearly the guys. And with Stafford's confidence going up, I think that just means he's going to throw to a guy like anyone less. Or, God damn it,
Amendola.
They're the same player. Let's be
Insert
honest.
white
Welker,
white
Amendola,
wide
and,
receiver.
Edelman, yeah.
Yeah, it was encouraging the first week. It's kind of stinks now for Adam for trying to trade him, because it was like if he could have done that for like say 2 or 3 weeks in a row, you could have tried to like trade him for something. But and I don't always mean to just like only talk about Adam's team for trading, but speaking on somebody I think he should trade and certainly get in the market for is Demarcus Robinson.
Yes.
He has him on his bench. I think he is at the perfect time to trade him right now,
Yep.
or in the coming weeks if you can.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think he's worth going forward, really?
I mean, I think a competing team would at least be willing to give like a 2nd round pick for him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe. I mean, do you think he keeps performing? With I mean, because really,
No.
he's nothing when Tyreek's out, right?
Not nothing, but
Isn't
I mean,
he?
it's between him and Hardman.
Sure.
for
So,
value.
Yeah.
so they split time as the wide receiver 3 after Tyreek
If
gets
they
back?
split. Right?
Sure.
I mean,
I don't know, when is Tyreek supposed to be back?
3 or 4 weeks, I think.
Sure.
6 to 8. Yeah.
Okay. Either way, basically by playoffs, but
Yep.
I get it. I mean,
I think he's a good lottery pick in the sense that I would much rather have him over a 2nd rounder, especially as a competing team.
Sure. Okay, but as a competing team, and I guess by the end of the season, you could potentially know if he's going to be better or not. Mm-hmm. But how many competing teams have that big of a hole at their wide receiver 3 or flex that they would be starting him on a week-to-week basis?
Fair.
Because, like, my wide receiver 3 is pretty bad, and I would still rather start Corey Davis over him, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
That's an example.
I don't know if I would.
I just want to point out that Demarcus Robinson got 2 targets, 1 reception, 0 yards week 1.
Correct, but
Right.
Hill played a lot of that game. And maybe now with the adjustment with Hill being out, they realized, okay, we want to get Robinson more involved. I don't know.
It's always tough to say, especially, I mean, like, if he puts up a couple more solid games like this, I'm willing to buy more into it, and I'm willing to buy more into the Patrick Mahomes relationship with DeMarcus Robinson, too.
Yeah, I mean, that's a completely different story. He
Sure.
puts up 2 more 40-point games.
Well, yeah, not even 40 points, even if they're somewhere like 10 to 20 for me.
Sure, and yeah, that's fine. I'm just saying I would rather, if we're going to invest in one of those flyers, I would take McCole Hardman over double the value of Robinson.
Oh, I agree, but for Adam trying to sell him, I don't think he can.
Yeah.
I don't think you're wanting to sell McCole Hardman.
Yeah,
That's fair. I can see believers out there, and if some believer wants to give a second, I would do it if I was Adam,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yep. That's kind of my point, I think. Yeah. So, yeah, other than that, Adam doesn't really have... The only other thing, I guess, to be... Oh, we already talked about Hardman. Yeah. So, Ito Smith, you were up on him, Cody, and he did not get target share, or, I mean, just like touch share.
I'm still up on him.
Efficiency was good, though.
His efficiency was off the charts.
Low sample size, but he had good efficiency in both games. I think he might be a buy low, and we just don't realize it.
Yeah, he just looks way better than Devonta Freeman. I mean, in those 4 carries, he got more yards than Devonta Freeman did rushing.
Yeah.
And Devonta had like 11 or something like that. He looks bad, and I was super worried about him going into the season just because he was already injury plagued and he already looked like he was deteriorating. I mean, he's not young anymore. Ito Smith's a 24-year-old running back. He looks really good when he does run the ball. Like, at this point, he should be the starter.
Yeah.
I am fully...
And he will be in the future, so I think he's a good building block for Adam's team.
Absolutely. I think he's not going to wear himself out either, which is really nice for Adam. It's in the perfect situation where you have every encouraging sign for him going forward without any of the risk.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Adam's team is... Everyone knows it's pretty trash this year, right? The ACT manual's in the mail, but... I mean, you look at his receivers, it's not bad. He's got Mike Williams, who won't be his flex going forward. I like McCole Hardman if they get rid of Sammy Watkins after this year. And then I thought he had one more too, but maybe he doesn't. But either way, he has one more decent receiver. He has 5 first-round draft picks next year. I mean, you can fill half your roster with that.
Oh, yeah.
He'll be... I think he might be a competitive team next year.
He also has N'Keal Harry. He's just on the IR.
N'Keal Harry, that's the one I was forgetting.
Yeah.
So theoretically, his wide receivers could already be filled and be decent next year. And then you draft, I don't know, 3 running backs and 2 more receivers. He's got a decent lineup.
What about Zay Jones?
Yeah, he hasn't been playing so well.
That's a real $10 bet that Cody and I had
That's
over the
real.
offseason.
Yep.
That is real.
And I think that he's like gonna be like wide receiver 80.
His snap percentage isn't that bad.
Yeah, but he's just bad.
I still
Which is kinda my point.
I still disagree with that, but
So you still think he could finish above wide receiver 48?
I don't think he's bad. He still could. It's not looking like it, obviously. But I mean, wide receiver 48 isn't a high line.
Sure.
So,
but
I mean,
he's at 96 right now.
You rattle off 2 30-point weeks, and you're probably wide receiver 30.
I'd be surprised if he rattles off 2 3-point weeks.
He already did.
Shit. Just one 3-point week.
Okay.
So that kind of wraps up our whole matchup discussion. Adam lost again. He's 0-2. And Jake is finally 1-1 after scoring 162 points, or 158 points. Along the way, I think our agenda was to talk about kind of power rankings and up or down, but I think we kind of already talked about that during the matchup. So is there anything else you guys want to talk about?
I guess how about this for power rankings?
Yeah.
Who do you think is the biggest jump, either up or down, after these first 2 weeks compared to preseason?
After 2 weeks.
Michael Reed to me.
Going up.
Yep. Michael Reed going up for sure.
What'd you have him at before?
I mean, I didn't even know for sure if I had him making playoffs. I maybe had him as one of the like bottom 3 teams personally.
Oh, really?
Bottom 3, bottom 4. And then I think like now with his team and the way his wide receivers have been performing, to me way in advance of what I thought they were going to be doing this year, I definitely moved him up.
See, I'm going to disagree, and I'm going to say Eric Barber, because he has both Tyler Boyd and DJ Moore that are like really like true ups, like stock ups in my opinion. Not that the other guys aren't, but I just think that adds a huge amount of relevancy to his team, in addition to Royce Freeman as his RB2. Like, I actually think Royce Freeman could be an RB2 depending on how Lindsey plays. So to me, he's the biggest jump up, and I'd be watching out for him. But both good answers, I think. Sam, who do you say?
Honestly, not to be negative, but probably your team. I mean, if we're talking about chance of making playoffs, I did agree with Matt that I think you're probably either second or third going into the season. Given, I still think your team is fine, but like, it's just a tough start. You're 0-2. I mean, really, you're down 50 points from what you need to make playoffs based on points. I still think you'll probably make playoffs, but I don't think you'll be the division winner at this point, unless you get a hot.
Oh no, I'm not gonna be division winner.
So I mean, it's obviously early, but you were, I mean, a title contender going to probably the 5th or 6th seed now.
I still think I think I'm still a title contender that's just in a lower seed, if that makes sense. Which
Sure,
hurts my ability to make the title.
But that's what either way. I mean, if you're going in as a
Yep.
bye compared to the 5th or 6th seed, then
Yep,
it's
I agree.
so
So it's like
not based on your team, based on the way the season is
agreed
progressed.
because nothing's really changed with my team. Because with Hill going down,
Well,
my tight end position's a little scarier. With Hill going down, Watkins just basically replaced him in value.
I would
Almost
rather. Yeah, I mean, I'd rather have Tyreek, and then Juju takes a little bit of a hit. But yeah,
Sure.
I agree. I think your team's still completely fine. So
Yeah. Cool. Well, with that, you guys, we ran. Any guesses on how long we ran today?
God, was this like an hour and a half?
probably about that.
More.
Oh,
hours?
hour 45?
Hour 50.
Oh, no.
So sorry, guys, listening. Our second part after we got interrupted went for an hour and 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah. We'll try to speed this up next time. I think we just got to not go over every single player.
But it's quality content.
It is quality.
And we didn't I don't know. We had not go every single player, but every time I tried to skip over a player, you guys were like, wait a minute. No, I want to talk about him.
There's just so many important
Yeah.
players.
Exactly.
Yep.
So this is definitely a work podcast. You just plug it in and listen, like half listen to it. In my eyes.
Don't even listen.
Yeah. It's just like background music.
It's okay. No one will hear that I'm gay. What?
We heard.
All right, guys.
Sure did.
On that note, thanks for listening to the Midwest Dynasty Fantasy Football Podcast. We're out. Bye.
Bum bum bum.